Okay. Well, I hope everything's doing okay. I can only do the best I can with what the internet service provider gives me. you know.
Hmm.
But we are live, and welcome to the Vomitorium. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And what I would like to say to everyone in the audience is Ihe Hauna Hun Un Dich, which basically just means Happy Halloween in the traditional Irish, which is my cultural heritage. Or probably should say Div if I'm talking to multiple people, but I like to think of the audience as one person. It helps me wrap it in my head better. Because
Right now, I think it is one person.
Yeah. yeah. For all we know.
Dark End Link is in the chat.
Yeah. In the traditional Irish, we call it Samhain.
Okay.
Yeah. But how are you? I'm doing good. How are you enjoying this Halloween? Do any spoopy things yet?
Good. I just did, you saw earlier, I did yesterday I did the Uzaki-chan pumpkin.
Yeah. I kind of like the XD face.
Yeah, I looked at the little icon that, shows up on the sort of the title screen where she has like the eyes in a triangle shape, little fangs.
Yeah, I haven't done a pumpkin carving in like years.
I'm not good at it. I'm terrible. There's no alcohol in this. This is just coffee.
That's disappointing.
But yeah, I'm so bad at it. And I was watching, I looked at Evans and Kat's pumpkins, and I was so impressed. And I was like, how do they do that? I can't do it. Like, I use a little knife, and it just, pushing it really, and it goes in, and it just like screws up if I try to do anything complicated. I can't do it. You need like special tools or something.
Maybe, I don't know. Every time I did a pumpkin carving, I just used like one of those big kitchen knives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really
That's all
big.
I use a big knife for the top, and then I use a little, the little kitchen knife for the, for the face. But
no, I just use the same one for the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I guess I just have a lot of control.
I need a sharper knife or something.
No, it would be what I should do.
Which is broken.
This would have been a great video, as I should have done a pumpkin carving with my longsword.
Yeah. There you go. Can you get the little details with that?
Oh yeah, but that wouldn't be the point. It would have been a comedic thing. It's like you start out doing just fine and everything looks like it's going good, and then you intentionally flub for the sake of comedy, and then just go to town tearing up the pumpkin in anger after that.
Yeah.
One year I had
I looked up the other...
a white pumpkin.
Oh, go ahead.
And I was going to do a carving. It was actually one of the years when I was running the show, and I completely forgot to, and it kind of just went bad, so I did a pumpkin smashing afterwards instead.
Yeah, I've never had like a catastrophic failure, but I just can't do fine details or any sort of complicated thing. I usually just do a couple eyes and a mouth, sometimes a nose. So it was complicated enough trying to get the little triangles without, carving out too much.
Well, I know some people, when they don't have better tools, they'll use a flathead screwdriver, and they'll just kind of like shave away at pieces. Because if you only shave away, you can kind of see through it, and you can get like those glow effects that are just like flat lights.
Yeah. Scrape off the the skin, basically, the light can shine right through. That's cool. I should have a sign on the bottom that says something.
It's an Irish holiday. You
Anyway.
should be drinking an Irish coffee.
Sorry, it's just got half and half in it.
You can't get drunk off of that.
And now it's empty, so I have to switch to Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the Age of Calamity. What was that? Was that demo out? Did it come out on Wednesday?
It came out the day we were talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, since then, I've actually watched it a bit. Well, like I told you offline, I didn't want to watch too much because I didn't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
I watched kind of just enough that I was watching somebody, a guy I watch, Cap Ferguson, play a little bit, and I just watched enough that I, basically just saw what was already in some of the previews, and then as he started to get into some of the actual content that I hadn't seen, I was like, nope, I don't want to see, I don't want to watch, I'm going to play it, I don't want to watch. So, it looks cool.
Still haven't even touched it. Like I said last time, I think tomorrow is the earliest I can touch it, just because I've been spending all that time preparing for the session that we didn't even have today.
Sorry.
Yeah. No.
My
Thank
fault.
you. Honestly, I was looking for a good excuse not to run it today because I had enough assets I could have ran it, but I didn't have everything finished that I wanted to have finished.
Yeah. Well, hopefully either tomorrow or maybe it's more likely next week. I don't know.
Oh, next week would be for the best, to be honest.
Well, if I can get my project done, then I have a little small project that I was working on this week, but had a little trouble with the client. But if I can get it done on Monday, then I can get paid and I can order a Switch and I can play.
No, we probably were having a pretty heavy delay today. He said it took 2 minutes for his last message to appear on stream. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I do not have... well, I figured out what the problem was that one time. It was because airplane mode was on. I just checked it's not. I might just be having ISP issues today.
Yeah. Well, it looks good to me. It just, there's a little bit of a delay, but looks all right.
Yeah.
What is TMTV 12.2?
Oh, that TMTV 12.2, that was a kind of like a video trope that I used to have with a bunch of people where we would make comedy videos, sketches, and stuff like that. Actually, I wanted to do a video for it recently, and Dillard was going to do it, but then he completely forgot even after I reminded him a few times. But he was like the third replacement. I'm still missing at least one other person. I used to run a series called What I Learned In on that channel, and it was basically kind of like a comedy type thing. It was like a mock interview show where I would get like 3 to 4 people to jokingly talk about what they learned in, up to this point it had only been video games, though the one I want to bring back is going to be the 2020 lockdown. And basically the person would just, kind of sit off to the side, stare at the camera, and talk about what they think they learned from the subject, like Animal Crossing or Kingdom Hearts. And then I would take whatever anybody said and I would comedically just like splice up the bits back and forth against each other. Yeah, it's a pretty fun series.
I don't know why I never noticed that pops up occasionally on your stream.
Yeah. It's in my sponsorship circle of things that aren't really sponsors of it. It's just stuff I run because I don't have sponsors to put on the show.
Well, if you want to be a sponsor, you can show up there in the corner.
Yeah.
down there somewhere. So,
I'll even
anyway.
read an ad spot if you pay for it. I just can't promise you'll like the ad spot because I have to make it sound like it belongs on this show.
Yeah.
Speaking of, if you want to be a sponsor in any way, you can support us through Patreon or a direct donation to my PayPal. It really helps out the show. It really should say brought to you in part by you. Possibly. I'm going to shame you if it's not you, though.
Cool. So what other news do we have today?
Well, Sean Connery died. That was pretty sad.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite actors. I mean, he was already retired, so it's not like he was doing anything. And at 90, in his career, he looked like he lived a pretty fulfilled life and got to retire in his home country of Scotland.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought it said he was living in the Bahamas or something.
Oh, did he? I didn't know he moved to the Bahamas. I remember when he initially retired, he went back to Scotland. I wasn't aware that he moved to the Bahamas. If there's any place to die, it's the Bahamas.
Definitely. That's where I want to die. I think. So, sad.
Yeah.
And of course, bizarre Twitter blue check marks are talking about how sexist he was. Don't even let the body cool before they start in.
Yeah.
So, gotta ignore them and celebrate the life of a actually incredibly talented actor.
Oh, yeah. Widely talented. Like, he could play any role, even though he was always traditionally casted as, like, the action guy. You know, even going way back to, like, Bond all the way to The Rock was one of his latest action films before he cut out.
Mm-hmm.
He always played a breadth of roles in between. As I always laugh, one of my favorite movies with him is The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, where he kind of like plays the polar opposite of the type of character he usually plays in movies. Where he's like the learned book guy who's timid and trying to find the intellectual solution to a problem, like using the broom or his umbrella to scare the birds into the air and everything.
Yeah. But he still got with that German chick.
Yeah. Well, 2 generations of Jones.
Apparently. Much to Indy's chagrin, I guess.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he was kind of the older version of Indiana Jones. Even though I think Harrison Ford was he younger than Sean Connery?
Oh, yeah. By quite a bit.
Not by much, though. Really?
Yeah, I mean, Sean Connery just died at 90.
Oh, I guess. Yeah. Harrison Ford's 78, so only 12 years difference.
Yeah, it's not enough
actually,
that he could be his son, but...
Yeah.
You know, unless Henry Sr. was a very early bloomer.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, some guys are already shooting by 12.
Brought to you by DL.
So that would make the Indiana Jones series a lot darker.
Yeah, it would be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, obviously someone that vast majority of people don't know, never met, but, you know, still sad.
Yeah. Well, because you know, with these people, you develop a what's called a parasocial relationship. So even though they don't, it's a one-way thing. They don't have a relationship with you. You kind of, at least for actors, their characters, you get to know them well enough that the characters that you see kind of become your friends in some way. It's kind of like when kids, they treat like the puppets on Sesame Street are their friends because they've developed a parasocial relationship with it. So Even though you never met the person, it is a deep and meaningful thing to you. You know, psychologically speaking.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
I don't either.
I
Just, rest in
The
peace.
Rock as well.
Yeah.
What's that?
So that's all I got to is rest in peace, Sir Thomas S. Connery.
Yeah. He's good in The Highlander and
It's good in everything.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Was he in that?
Yeah, he was. He played Quartermain. Alan Quartermain. Yeah. Which,
Well, at least he lived to.
well, maybe that's
Michael
the
Bay
solution. We should just take his body and bury him in Africa and see if he comes back out of the ground.
Is that what happened in that?
Because Alan Quartermain can't die as long as he's on the grounds of Africa. It's like a shaman curse or whatever, or I guess a blessing on him.
Yeah, was that a comic book?
No, Alan Quartermain was an old book. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was a graphic novel, but
Okay.
all the characters from it were like classic horror, or not horror, but just fictional characters. 'Cause I wouldn't consider Quartermain a horror story. I guess it kind of is, because that the kind of thing keeping him alive is sort of a curse at first, because he was a hunter. But like all the people, Dorian Gray and all that stuff, they were all books. I mean, there's the Portrait of Dorian Gray, overrated book, but I like the way the character was portrayed.
You're right. It's been so long since I watched that. I couldn't remember whether it was a proprietary kind of superhero team, but no, yeah, it was made up of various, presumably public domain characters.
Well, yeah, by the time that was made, all those characters would be public domain, because I believe the most recent story probably was Tom Sawyer, who was the youngest person in the group anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's press F for Sean Connery.
F's in the chat.
Or R.I.P.
Ripperoni, pepperoni.
So I watched y'all play Genshin last night.
Yeah, we were having fun.
Yeah, that was exciting. It says there's a lead story on PC Gamer. Genshin Impact is getting even more improvement to its contentious resin system.
Yeah, a lot of people hate the resin system. We didn't do much with it last night, and at Rick's level, resin's not bad. Sometimes it feels like you have too much of it. But then as you start getting to my rank, you start to run out of resin like really fast. And it's because you need it for everything, right? There's these ley line deposits, which I think we did one or two of those. Which are these like glowing orbs around the map. And those take 20 resin. The bosses that we fought, because we fought like that big fire flower, that takes like, and we also did the electric hypostasis, that weird cube, that takes up 40 resin each. Then there's also those domains that we did, if you want the rewards from that also takes up like 20 resin per domain, and you only get 120 at a time, and it has to cycle back up. Are berets gay? Yes. But that's because they're French, and everything that's French is gay.
Yeah, I don't have a beret model right now. I don't think I've ever owned a beret in my life.
I don't think I have either. But yeah, everything takes resin. It's actually, I think right before you cut out before, or I know you might have still been on. Last time when Duggar came on, pretty much what he was complaining about the whole time was just the resin system.
Oh.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's
I
worth
only have gotten,
complaining. There's plenty you could do without it, but you're not going to level, is the problem.
hmm, I don't think I've gotten far enough for it to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I wonder what improvements. Have you read this before?
No, I haven't looked. It has to be something that they just decided to do, though, because they already announced when their patches were going to come. There's a November 11th and, like, a December... Is it 20th or something? Maybe it's sooner, but there's a November and a December patch. The December one, might be the 17th, is actually going to be adding a whole new area to the map. So, like, another Arkan quest. Whole, like, mini campaign. And the November one, I'm pretty sure, is mostly a quality of life update. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was snuck in there.
Well, apparently there's an update on November 11th that increases the total amount of resin that players can store at one time and lowers the required amount you have to spend each week in order to complete one of the weekly quests.
Okay.
But then it says that change doesn't really address the core issue that it regenerates too slowly and is spent too quickly, but they are aware of the feedback on that, and so they're going to address it somehow. They're
Okay.
not saying exactly.
But it's all getting wrapped up in the quality of life update that was going to come November 11th anyway.
Well, it sounds like they're going to do what I just said on the November 11th, but it sounds like they're going to do more
Yeah.
on a later.
Well, I'm just glad it's
Presumably out.
getting put in the update that they already said they were going to do instead of being pushed back for at least the initial stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe the other ones will come in a mid-update between them. Maybe it'll just wait until December, but at least they're addressing it.
Yeah. At least they're not just ignoring it. They're actually saying, yes, we are aware that it's annoying.
I like Evan's idea. I have a new idea for a Final Fantasy character. It's a ghost that possesses other party members when someone can't make it to the game.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Rick is here.
Yep.
I'm in the middle of trying to defeat Breaker.
Oh, yeah, I know what he's talking about. I think he means, Storm Terror. But that's the big dragon that's in Genshin that you see, like, at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks like, appropriately too, it kind of looks like a Nordic dragon, which tend to be more dog-like, I guess, in a way. Like they tend to have more of a mammalian body style with their arms and legs, and they'll have like 6 wings and then a traditional face. Flammy from the Mana series is more closer to what a Nordic dragon looks like, and being the fact that Mondstadt is a Germanic-based area, you would expect the dragon to look very Nordic.
Evan says it's completely off topic. We're talking about Evan's character now.
Well, I mean, a ghost character would be appropriate. It is Halloween. And on All Hallows Eve, I figured if we had nothing else to talk about, we could talk about some horror-related stuff, maybe even some horror games that we liked and things like that. Especially because I didn't see much news. But we could cover news first. Did you see that the Joy-Cons are also getting a permanent price decrease?
Oh, yeah, I did. Saw that.
I think that is a very good thing.
Yeah, they're ridiculous in terms of price, especially since you end up either having to repair them or
Replace
replace
them.
them at some point. It seems like
Yeah.
I've gone the repair route, but yes, I know people who have bought several, and they're very expensive.
Yeah, controllers in general are just too expensive these days, but especially the Joy Cons with how fragile they are. Like you end up
Hmm.
spending as much, maybe even a little bit more, on a controller than you do on a video game. Which you could argue the price is justified because you're going to be using that controller for multiple games, but still, it's like your controller busts, and the money you were gonna spend on a new game, you're spending on a new controller now.
So what? A single Joy-Con used to cost $50.
Yeah.
They're reducing it to 40.
Yep.
Um, and a full set costs 80.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I actually didn't realize it was that expensive.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
actually well, I think it was also because of the what's it called? Production limit, right? Because for a while it was hard to get a hold of Joy-Cons with how much people were going through them. So it actually kind of
Yeah.
raised the demand. But yeah, it was cheaper to get a Pro controller than it was to get a Joy-Con set.
So they're actually not decreasing the cost of a pair.
Yeah,
They're only
the
decreasing the
individual.
cost of the individual ones. So it's no longer cost effective to buy them by the pair because now it's
Well, I think the
exactly
biggest
half the
complaint
price.
is both of them can go out, but more often than not, the one that starts drifting is your left-handed one. You know.
One. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I found. I've had both start drifting, but the left one typically starts first.
And it's probably because that's the one that most games use more often, since that's your primary
Oh, yeah.
movement controller. Not every game uses
Yeah.
the other stick for camera or everything quite to the same degree.
Yeah, and you're not going to, even if it does use it, like in Breath of the Wild, you're constant. I mean, obviously, the movement one is one you're constantly using. The camera one, you don't use nearly as much.
Yeah, and you're not even necessarily using all the time. Like for aiming the bow and arrow, I was using the gyro for most of it. You know, like I would
Yeah.
do like a quick flip to get to the general location and then use the gyro control to precision aim.
Hmm. Oh, Evan points out that the 8-bit Doe can be used as a pro controller. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Probably. I would assume so. You can use
Okay.
most things as a pro controller. You know, it even recognizes some people's fight sticks too. There's a lot of USB controllers you can plug in, and I know I've seen somebody
Uh,
actually use an Xbox One controller on the Switch through USB. It's weird how many controllers it'll actually pick up.
wow. We're still talking about Ghost Heaven.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be great because this was a hell of a lot cheaper than a pro controller. I threw out my pro controller because it started drifting and I was about to go soldering it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I when I get my new Switch, I'm gonna try it out.
It
That'll be
was
awesome.
funny too. Is you can't use it for every game because it doesn't have enough buttons and capabilities. But for the games that it works, you can even plug the GameCube controller in if you have the adapter, and it counts as a pro. And GameCube controllers are like $30.
No,
Yeah.
cool.
So I'll use it on games like Mario Kart or whatever, where you don't need like every single button. Obviously, it doesn't work on things that you need both bumpers because it only has the Z, and it doesn't work on anything where you have to click the stick in because it doesn't have that capability. So I was trying to play Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age, but it just doesn't have enough buttons to do everything. You can't pull your map up, and a couple other things. It's like whatever. I'll just go back to the Joy Cons.
Yeah, man, I can't wait.
DL says it's still too much. That's over $100 here in Canada. Yeah, Everything's more expensive
Yeah.
in Canada. I mean, technically, it's the same price. It's just your money doesn't go as far. I'm gonna
Yeah.
blame your prime minister. It's
Those are
probably not
Canadian
even.
bills. It's like monopoly money anyway.
Yeah, yeah. At least that's what Weird Al tells me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I wish they were
Appropriate.
found a way to pull it down even more though. Like I know the Joy Cons are a very proprietary thing, especially the way they work too. If you were the type of person that played more two-player games that used each Joy-Con, you'd probably go through both of them at about the same rate. But not a lot of games do that, and not a lot of people play that way anyway. Maybe if you have like kids in a house, I don't know.
Yeah, so DL, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. I bought a Pro controller. It started drifting, and it's a brick at that point.
Yeah, yeah, because it
It's
literally
worthless.
uses the same mechanism inside of it for how the stick works. It's
Yep.
just a slightly better made version, so it tends to drift a bit later. But the problem is it's harder to repair, so you're
Yeah,
better off with
mine
the
started
Joy
drifting
Cons.
after like 3 months.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to buy one again because, yeah. Whereas I've repaired the Joy Cons, they're very easy. You get a $15 repair kit from Amazon. It comes with the screwdrivers and everything. I've repaired it in like, takes like 20 minutes. With a Pro controller, you can use the same repair kit, but it requires soldering or desoldering and soldering. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to buy another whatever it was $80 Pro controller because it started drifting in 3 months. It was ridiculous,
Yeah.
insane. Oh, bye, Evan.
I mean, Tokyo Drift wasn't the worst thing you could say because it is a Japanese company, but I understand, Evan. I understand. Because he asked, is that like Tokyo Drift? Which is the only good Fast and Furious movie, in my opinion. At least for the ones I've seen. I
I
haven't
agree.
seen Fate of the Furious yet, but I doubt it's any better.
I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie.
You're probably better off. Except for Tokyo Drift, which is a legitimately good movie. But that's because Fast and Furious is, in general, more like Mission Impossible, while Tokyo Drift is more like Need for Speed. It's actually a
I've
racing movie.
seen I've seen Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, that's a much better movie. By
I
far.
like that
I,
movie.
I I love Gone in 60 Seconds. It's one of my favorite Nick Cage movies.
Mhm.
Do I like that one more than The
Tell-
Rock? I mean, The Rock has Sean Connery. It's a tough question.
Rick is defending Canadian currency.
I mean, I could tell my denominations by QuickSight too, but that's because I'm used to looking at our bills.
Yeah. You know what I watched on Amazon Prime the other day was the original um, Daredevil movie with what's that guy's name?
Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It was decent. It
Yeah.
was better than I remember. But the reason I bring it up is because there's a scene where he has all of his money in like containers,
Hmm.
and he folds them differently so he can tell. Like he folds one of them lengthwise, and he folds one of them the other way. So I thought that was an interesting way for him to keep track of the different
Yeah, because
denominations.
he wouldn't be able to tell the difference since he could tell that it is a bill, but you can't see like with his weird sonar system inks or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess not. Although I feel like wasn't he able to read, or at least feel like not just braille, but he could actually feel print on a page.
I I, I guess I
I
don't
don't know.
know. It's very inconsistent. Like sometimes with the
Yeah,
excuse that if there was heavier ink, He'd be able to feel the difference in the ink of the letters than the blank paper underneath it, just because they
Yeah.
wanted to make him that sensitive. But it's a very inconsistent thing that's not always true about Daredevil. I think. Wait, Rick said it wasn't a pun; it was a play on words. You know, Rick, that is the definition of a pun, right? Is a play on words. um,
Who, who is Rick's replacement?
that's Evan.
Oh my. Got multiple Ricks. Multiple Ricks in the chat.
What is this, Rick and Morty? Which one's the Rickest Rick?
I know.
Yeah, but
The Rickiest Rick.
that no, the movie's not horrible. It's not great. The problem there's two major problems with it because even the script's not that bad if you were to just take the script for what it is. Direction was a big problem, and another side effect is casting, which is part of directing too, because you have casting directors and the director has a final say on everything. They're like one of my favorite actors of all time is in that movie, and that's Michael Clark Duncan. Great actor, love him. Horrible casting for Kingpin. So
My
many.
problem with it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you say.
My problem with the movie, and I think it stems from watching the Netflix show and I love the Daredevil Netflix show.
Oh, I did too.
And my problem with the movie was it was too fast. It didn't take the time to introduce the characters. It was just like, okay, suddenly there's the Kingpin, and if you didn't know the backstory, it was just like, who is this guy? It's just all of a sudden it's there, and then Bullseye suddenly shows up, and it's like, I know nothing about this character. He's just suddenly there.
Yeah,
And it's just like,
I think
there
they were
wasn't enough.
banking on Daredevil being more popular than he was. Because at this point,
wasn't
there's
enough
certain
development.
characters that you've seen their origins so many times that
Yeah.
people would complain if you did a movie with their origin again. I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
any of the MCU Spider-Man movies, but I do think that they were smart to not do a Spider-Man origin story because of how many times people know it. Daredevil, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is a character that almost nobody knows the origin to up until these movies are come out. So he's a character that you
Yeah.
do need to set up a proper origin story for. He's popular among
they
comics
did.
readers, but not among the general public.
Yeah. They did in the movie, they showed the origin story,
But it was like,
but it's very brief.
yeah.
Yeah, they needed to expand that more. I mean, they needed to take it slower. They needed to anticipate, I think, sequels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they did a sequel, which was terrible.
It was more like a
but-
spin-off, and yeah, it was.
Yeah. They needed to expand more on his origin, and just pick one enemy. Like they had Elektra, Bullseye, and Kingpin, and it was just too much
Yeah.
for one movie. It was kind of like that Spider-Man 3 movie with the Sandman, and it was just too many characters, and it just was too. Yeah, they needed more character development. They could have done a lot better. Like
Yeah.
either concentrate on Elektra or concentrate on Bullseye or something.
Yeah, one or
But-
the other. Because you have to. The problem with these movies too, especially when you're introducing a character for the first time, which is another thing. I liked that the early Batman movies, right? Like the Tim Burton going all the way through, because they even though it wasn't a consistent series, they kind of treated it like it was a consistent series even after Burton got off. At no point did they actually do a Batman origin story because of how popular was the character. They would sneak bits of his origin in there. They would talk about it. They do show like a flashback to his parents being shot in the alleyway, and then they even they do it like really brief at the beginning too. but it's not like they spend a lot of time. They don't show you the Batman training sequences like Batman Begins did and everything like that. It's all just like, Batman's story. We're putting in here because it's necessary, but we don't have to really focus too much on it. And that works for that character. So they could spend their time introducing the villain and giving an origin story for the villain each time. Yeah. The struggle you have with Daredevil is that you have to both introduce Daredevil's background in full while also building up a villain. So yeah, you can't focus on more than one at a time. You already have two characters you have to develop.
Yeah, that's why I loved the series, because they even start him out before he even has the costume. They just have him with whatever he had, a bandana over his head.
Yeah, he was the man without fear, which is Daredevil's name, but they were kind of like separating as a separate character.
Right.
Yeah.
And they kind of, I mean, the series was perfect. I mean, the first season, absolutely perfect. They just,
second season was
slowly
great, but not as great. It was almost like a dip. I thought the last one was better than the second one.
Yeah, I liked all of them. I mean, people had problems here and there, but I mean, compared to some of the other ones, I mean, they did the whole Defenders, all four characters in the individual series, but Daredevil I thought was pretty.
It was the strongest series, yeah.
Yeah. So even, I mean, I loved the their version of Bullseye. He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was just amazing.
And I agree. They should not, with Rick, they should not have introduced Elektra until the second movie, which the show was smart. They didn't really introduce her until the second season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't, I mean, they just kept expanding on her character. And what was it? She was called the Black Sky or something like that.
Yeah, what was it?
In the Defenders movie, or the Defenders series.
I think so. Because she was supposed to be the, basically the heir to the whole hand.
The hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets resurrected and all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, they obviously with a series, they can definitely take their time and really, really flesh out the characters.
They really floundered the Defenders show, though. When they finally brought everybody together.
I like that too.
Well, I liked it,
but
too. Man, there were so many problems with it. They took too long to actually get anything done for only having 8 episodes, right? Like, I don't think it was the 3rd episode until anything became like important. And then Curtis's character. Wait, no, was it Curtis? Why am I thinking Curtis? Sigourney Weaver. Weaver's character was like not important at all. She was kind of just there to have Weaver be a role. That's it.
Yeah. She was good though, but my favorite part of the Defender, my favorite episode was where Luke Cage and Danny Rand fight.
Yeah.
I love that. That was fantastic. Whereas like they're both amazing superheroes who've never met and never really run into somebody that could really stand up against them.
Yeah.
But when they come together, it's like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. They beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and it's like it's starting to go out into Cage's favor until he actually uses the Iron Fist on him. And based on the way things have gone in the comics, if Iron Fist went all out, he would totally demolish Luke Cage, but it's still an encounter that you're not prepared for. It was a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Well, he knocks him. I mean, I don't know if he knocked him out, but he like knocks him across
right on his butt across the room.
Yeah. I love that. I love that scene, that episode, that whole scene. So there were some good moments and bad moments. Like even the Luke Cage series, I thought the second season was weak.
Yeah.
But in the first season even had its moments, but I never really got into it. The character, it just didn't have interesting characters to me. Anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't, because he didn't feel enough like Luke. Like, the story was kind of interesting, but he was a very toned down, mellow version of Luke. And I think one of the reasons is a lot of the way Cage was when he first came out was kind of stereotyped, right? He's kind of similar to how like blaxploitation stuff was at the time. Not to the highest degree, but I understand why you don't want the exact same personality. He used to have the catchphrase "Sweet Christmas," which is kind of like the way every character in a blaxploitation film would have the thing they say in that way, "Sweet Christmas." And he did say it once. I appreciated that. I also kind of appreciated the throwback when he was escaping from the lab and he was in like his kind of yellow shirt and he had the crown on, but instead of it being part of a costume, it was part of like the equipment that he was still wearing when he ripped out. So there's like kind of a throwback to that. But like I get a lot of reasons why they changed the character.
That was good.
Yeah.
Rick I'm trying to remember which one is actually Rick and which one's Evan. But yeah, I should have had Bullseye in town to kill someone. Daredevil stops him. Yeah, the Bullseye thing just seemed a bit forced. I thought it was just kind of suddenly he's there. And then not introducing Elektra until the second movie. I think that would have been a good idea.
Yeah, and they could have introduced Kingpin through Bullseye more effectively too, right? Have Bullseye be the main villain, but Bullseye usually does contract work, so who would he be contracting for? And it's kind of what they did. They just did it in a very sloppy way.
Yeah, they should have saved Kingpin for a second movie, probably too. Maybe just kind of had him in the background, but that's kind of how they did it in the first season of the show, was that he was there, but like
they really built him up over time.
Yeah, there was no confrontation until the very end of the first season.
And they picked such a great actor for him too. I love how do you say his last name? It's Vincent D'Onofrio, I believe.
D'Onofrio.
Yeah, okay. I always forget how to say his name, but yeah, he was Full Metal Jacket and Law and Order. Really good actor. And I'm glad they picked him. I like the way that they did the nod to him being the Kingpin, but I didn't like the fact that they never actually called him that. Right? He was always just Wilson Fisk. But then there was like the guy who was tracking him down did have like a his bulletin board, and then he puts a pin into like I think it was the King of Spades or whatever when trying to figure out who the Kingpin to this operation was. So it's like it was there, but it was like subtle, and it's like, you're trying to be too real here, man. Just outright call him the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also liked, was it Jessica Jones?
I liked season 1 of Jessica Jones a lot. Season 2, I still enjoyed, but I didn't like it so much. Because I describe it as an empty sandwich. The first 3 episodes were really good. The last 3 episodes were really good. The 6 in the middle was kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
But anytime, what's his face? He was the Doctor Who dude who played the Purple Man. Can't remember the actor's name. Tennant. David Tennant.
Oh.
Anytime Tennant was on screen was just magic. Like, he really killed that role. He was upset, though. I saw him in an interview talking about it on, like, one of those talk shows. And he was upset that the most... Because he heard he was playing the Purple Man, right? And he's like, oh, cool, so I'm going to get to be purple the whole time. He's like, no, at most we'll give you, like, a purple piece to your suit or something like that. And he was like, he wanted to get into it. He was playing a character. And it's like, no, we're not actually going to make you purple.
Why was he purple? In the comics, why was he purple?
I forget. It's been a long time, but that was like the character is actually purple.
I know. But no, that was a great character.
Yeah, he killed it, man.
Yeah.
He's a good actor. I'm not a fan of Doctor Who, like, at all.
Mm-hmm.
But occasionally I'd find an episode that I enjoyed just because he was in it and he was doing the role really well.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to see him in more stuff.
Yeah.
And I was glad when he came back in season 2 as well. It's kind of like that ghost type thing, the hallucination from her psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Fist was a mess. I still enjoyed it, but Iron Fist was a mess.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
See, I liked it better than Luke Cage, frankly. But yeah.
I think I enjoyed it better than Luke Cage. I think Luke Cage was less of a mess of a show. One of the big problems with Iron Fist was the choreography. And it was supposed to have the same person who did the choreography from Daredevil, but then they decided to start filming the next season of Daredevil at the same time, so they had to get a different choreographer who was not as good. And there was just all kinds of problems with it. I think there was even a partial rewrite halfway through recording as well, so that kind of like upset the flow of things. It was still an enjoyable show. I liked it, but if you're really paying attention, you can see like the flops in it. Especially, so like if you are a martial artist and a fighter, you pay a lot closer attention to choreography than most people do, because you're looking for things that like, okay, so this is basically a dance, but what would actually work in real life if this was a combat situation and everything like that. Not necessarily relying on the other person doing what they're doing, but like, what would be a practical move that your opponent would be doing, and how does this work in a situation? Daredevil's actually really, really solid with it for the most part, especially when he's fighting street thugs, because the thugs are basically choreographed to fight the way that average people brawl on the street. The biggest problem is when you start getting into the mix with the hand, which you expect to be of a higher caliber of fighting capability, and then they start doing like really sloppy stuff for no reason.
Yeah. I could see that. I probably didn't appreciate that difference, but yeah. If I were to watch it again, I'd probably notice more. Now you've ruined it for me. Can never watch it again.
Like I said, I still enjoyed it despite that. So, honestly, I thought one of the strongest seasons though on its own though, despite the fact that he really didn't feel like what I would expect from the best runs of the comics. I thought the series for Punisher was done very well.
Yeah, it was good. I like the tie-in to Daredevil. Oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that too.
He didn't like the fact the Iron Fist didn't get his classic outfit.
Yeah.
It's pretty flamboyant though in the comic.
Yeah, you're supposed to be this peak martial artist who, while you're not Batman or anything, he does do a lot of stealth. And you're wearing this really bright green and yellow outfit.
Yeah. Strange.
Yeah. I don't know. They seemed very averse to anybody wearing their outfit. Like, Jessica Jones kind of works because she's supposed to be in that point after she was Jewel. So she's obviously not going to be wearing that outfit, but the others, it's like, I would have liked to see Luke Cage wear the Power Man outfit more. The build-up for Daredevil was fine. I didn't think it needed to take that long. He could have got the outfit maybe like halfway through the season.
See, I like it was kind of like the fact that they saved it for the very end. I thought was pretty cool.
No, it worked the way they built it up. I just don't think they had to wait that long to do it. It just depends how you write it. It's not the worst. It works really well.
Hmm. Yeah, but Jessica Jones was she was the detective noir
Mm.
character. So
Well, like she had some lines that were like directly out of comics,
mhm.
like that she still got shot afterwards, but she had like her jacket on, and they were shooting like pointing a gun at her, and she was like, "If you shoot through this $400 jacket, I will personally shove this bullet up your ass with my pinky." That's a line that directly came out of the comic and stuff like. They did this throughout. There
Yeah.
was a few times where characters had lines that they said directly in the comics. I thought it was a good nod.
Hmm. Well, this is not my mom's bedroom. It's my bedroom for now.
Yep.
Anyway. Anyway. So yeah, I don't know how we got on the Defenders here.
I
Oh, I
don't.
guess
Oh,
we're
you
talking
talked
about
about Daredevil, the movie originally.
yeah.
Yeah. Because
Only
of money.
yeah.
Because of
We were
money.
talking about currency, Canadian currency, and it reminded me of the Daredevil movie because he folded his currency a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Canadians with their
I
plastic
blame Rick.
monopoly money.
I was trying to remember where I was.
Are all
I was
Canadians
Italy.
blind too? Because I feel like the actual numbers on their denominations take up the entire bill.
Yeah. Do they have different size bills as
I
well?
don't. Do they? I don't know how big their bills are.
Some countries have different sizes. I was trying to remember where I was noticing the bills were different sizes.
Yeah.
Might have been Italy.
I think they're different colors too.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe on average, Americans just have better eyesight than everybody else, or better glasses. That might be the thing. We just that's the real difference in our healthcare and why it costs so much. Our glasses actually work and nobody else's does.
Our glasses? Like
Yeah,
these
yeah.
glasses?
So people actually know how to like fine tune a prescription here in the States, and they just can't do that overseas, or even in Canada. That's why everybody's bills have such big numbers on it or different colors, so even a blind person
I see.
can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason why our healthcare costs so much. Because I don't know about you,
Oh
I've
boy.
never had problem like at a glance telling what denomination any of our bills are, despite the fact that they're all the exact same color and the numbers are the same size in the corner of the bill.
Yes. Do we need to have a little lesson for Rick?
Uh,
This is a 1. You can tell by the 1
and by
right there
the
in the
Washington
corner.
right there in the middle too.
Right?
I think that's another thing that
Says
helps too. Is like I know all the
$1.
presidents or the non-president who's on a bill.
Mhm. Like you can. What's interesting though is that you can tell a $10 bill by the fact that it has a 10 in the corner.
Yeah.
That's the interesting.
Yeah, it does still have a 1 on it, but it also has a 0 next to it.
Yeah. You might be looking at the bill and be like, oh, it's a 1 because it has a 1, but then it has this other number, 0, and that's the dead giveaway that this is actually not a $1.
And we know the $2 bill was confusing some people for a while, so we just took that out of circulation.
Yeah. Although you can find those occasionally.
Yeah, because people were just looking at it upside down and thinking it was a 5.
Hmm. Stop talking about my mom. So yes, if you want to know about 5s and 20s, that's in the advanced course. I don't have any with me right now. But yes, we'll be talking more about that, I'm sure. Introduction to United States currency.
Maybe they have bigger numbers because the number is the focus of the bill. Maybe, but we really like our founding fathers and the other people associated with the construction of this country. So the focus of our bill is that super cool guy in the middle.
That's right.
Welcome to
They never did
America.
redesign the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm bothered by the fact they never redesigned the ones. With the other ones, they made the portraits even bigger.
Yeah, yeah. Washington still has that
But
classic little circle encasing it.
yeah, very small. I guess they figured, we don't need to enhance the um, whatever, duplication technologies or whatever anti-counterfeit because nobody's counterfeiting $1 bills.
Yeah. Canadian bills actually have Braille on them, no joke. I could see that working since they're plastic. You couldn't do that with linen, which we're still using.
That's right. Yeah, American currency is made out of cotton, actually.
Yep. So you can't really call it paper. Well, papyrus is kind of the same way, but properly it is linen. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not made from wood pulp.
Yeah. That's why, if you forget your bills in your pockets when you wash your clothes, they're still good afterwards.
Yeah, they get soft, but
Yeah.
they're still good.
They'll crisp them back out after they dry.
Yes. Next week we will be discussing, coins. Yeah.
What was funny is a lot of people like to joke that because a few other countries have switched to the type of plasticky money, and they thought it's like, oh well, this is gonna be better. It'll spread less germs. Turns out it actually holds onto them and spreads more germs than the linen money does. After doing, yeah. Well, the problem was the assumption was after there wasn't a lot of research on it, but now that they've had it circulating for long enough, more research could be done. It's like the opposite case was true. Yeah.
Now I've read. Tell me if you've heard of this or if you think it's true that a majority of bills, American bills, have trace amounts of cocaine on them.
Ooh, I don't know. I've heard that rumor before. I wouldn't be surprised, but I cannot verify that.
Just because they've been used by drug dealers at some point. Or they've come in contact with bills. I mean, they're kind of like, virus spreaders, like super spreaders. Like eventually they come in contact with something they came in contact with,
DL says he just took a look at a 20 and has the Queen on there, so, there's that. I mean, if you like the Queen, I think Betty's all right, but we're also dirty traders who threw tea in the harbor, so we're not exactly on the best terms. If she tries to speak up, we'll throw her in the harbor too.
We're not crazy about our monarchs.
Big
Former
cotton,
monarch.
it's in your pocket. Yes, it is. It might even be your pocket as well.
That's right. Everything I'm wearing is cotton, actually.
Yeah. I think my scrubs that I'm wearing are mostly cotton too.
I'm wearing denim jeans. So that's all cotton.
And, actually, even one more. My shoes are cotton. It's a cotton sole kung fu shoes.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I don't know.
Big Cotton, if you exist as an industry, sponsor the show. I will totally take your money and promote cotton every day.
I bet you my medical mask is probably mostly cotton as well.
Yeah.
I don't have the box in front of me, but Rick says the faces of people are bigger than the numbers. Well, that's the case with our number.
Well, it should be.
Bills as well.
I would be upset if it wasn't.
I'm not sick, Bullet. In fact, I am getting better since I moved from Arizona to Alabama a week ago. I haven't been sick. I've just have allergies. I'm allergic to Arizona, but
Yeah.
it's getting better.
You sound a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't have as much, like, recurring like nasal drip,
Yeah.
but I still have stuff stuck in my throat that just
Yeah.
needs to loosen up.
Now, one
don't
thing
know
I
about that.
have heard about the more plastic type money is that it's easier for vending machines long term. Because you know you've had problem with linen money having to like wrap it out, find a corner to something to decrease it and stuff just to get it into a vending machine.
Yeah. As soon as somebody starts talking about my health, I suddenly start coughing. Yeah, I imagine the plastic money is harder to rip as well. So
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't read that, but that sounds good. Like it sounds right. It's really easy to rip our money.
yeah. So I would think it would be better for vending machines, especially if they're different sizes too. I imagine it's easier. Well, I don't know. I don't know how vending machines work. I don't know if it actually reads the magnetic strip or if it actually just scans the print. I don't know.
Well, see, that's the problem too, right? We would probably have hemp money if it wasn't for the cotton industry. Hey,
And
Rick,
cotton.
how you doing?
Hey,
We're just
Yes,
here to
well,
smack
I mean,
talk your weird Monopoly money.
I was gonna show off a live. Do I got my camera on?
Your camera's not on.
Video.
Oh, here he comes.
Do, do,
We've
do.
got squares. Got little blue squares.
Where do I change the source? Maybe.
I'm quivering with anticipation. What
Oh,
are we
yeah.
about to see?
A 5. A 5er.
Oh, he's showing up. Oh my goodness! I see the underside of
Let
Rick's
me
chin.
lower this video section a little bit since there's more people.
Crap.
Is that a fake background or is that your actual background?
That's a real fake background.
Oh, an actual like green screen kind of thing.
It's something. It's almost like a sheet.
Yeah. So there's
Ooh.
one side of
Why
Ooh,
is it so shiny? I don't like that.
it. Probably because of the plastic and the film.
Uh,
Oh, it's like, is it see-through? Wow. It is
There's
see-through.
the back. Right there, it's see-through.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like that really shiny foil thing on there.
Cool.
What's the purpose of that?
Probably. I would guess anti-counterfeiting. That would be my best guess.
Yeah. You just have to make it as complex as possible. Imagine it's expensive to manufacture those.
Yeah. Fortunately, that's all I got on me as a 5.
So wait, is that the queen?
No, the
No,
queen's on the
that's
20.
That's a dude.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it is.
Well, maybe he identifies
Maybe-
as a queen.
I don't think he identifies by anything but dead. Sir Wilfrid Laurier, Prime Minister
Oh,
from
I know him.
1896 to 1911.
Yeah. Laurier University is named after him. I'm familiar with that prime minister.
I'm not allowed to watch Rick. Does this count? Is Bullet not allowed to watch you?
Why is he not allowed to watch me?
I don't know.
No.
Maybe somebody put a mandate down that he's not allowed to watch you. There's a boycott on Rick,
I need to see
apparently.
it. Does your currency glow in the dark?
No.
I don't think so. How's it going, Rick?
Hey, it's good. It's going good. At least the three of us are on stream for something different. Well, I shouldn't say different. We were supposed to be on stream together earlier today.
Quick, roll for initiative.
So, what do you think about Genshin Impact? You like it?
I like it. I was playing it earlier today. I'm up to 19. And as I said earlier in the chat, I'm in the middle of facing Stonebreaker. I gotta start over. I keep dying at the point where you're on the ledges and you have to jump from ledge to ledge every so often.
You should go make sure you
somehow,
build some food and increase your defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm out of there at the moment and trying to do some stuff to build up levels and all that.
Yeah. At least there's a teleporter right outside of it, so once you get there, you can go and do other stuff.
Yeah. So as you can tell with that, I opened up that whole area. I've got all the teleporters, I think, activated in that area. So I can go anywhere in that area now, so that's good. Although I can only go in one way. The wall's still all there, that air wall.
Yeah, it's always there. I don't know why they don't take it away. Who knows?
So they make it so you can only go in one way into that section?
Yeah, or to teleport in afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I guess teleporting is just as good.
If anything, it's better. You don't have to walk the whole way.
Yeah, or run.
Yeah. But, and the wind wall never goes away around the fortress either. The temple that you're at. It's always there. Don't know why. I don't know why they didn't program it for it to just, like, go away when you're done.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's down the road. You'll take that out somehow.
I don't know. I don't think they care enough. Unless people complain about it.
Let's complain. Let's create a campaign to complain about the wind wall.
Hashtag tear down that wall.
Take down the wall.
Okay.
That'd be a good one for
Well, the thing is, we'd be yelling at the Chinese Communist Party to take down that wall. I feel like there's a repeat of history about yelling at communists to remove a wall.
Yeah. Ginseng Impact. Hashtag take down. Hashtag take down the wind wall. Something like that.
Tear down this wall.
Wind wall removal.
So did you ever play World of Warcraft, Rick?
Yeah. I had it on my system. I played it a few years ago. I'm not sure what I got up to. I think I might have purchased time, but I played it recently, and you can only get up to 20. So it's like,
Yeah.
I just took it off.
Apparently, the latest expansion has the highest pre-sales of any expansion ever in the history of the game.
Cool. That's
Shadowlands.
good, I guess.
I'm not going to play it.
Oh, I'm not either.
I'm not
Oh,
going
yeah.
to play for it.
Yeah, same here. I would have liked to, play more of it, put it in, but
Too
now
bad
we're
to
doing Ginseng Impact on my channel at least once a month.
Genshin.
Ginseng is a
Ginseng?
Genshin. We're doing Genshin Impact at least once a month on my channel. We're doing a Final Fantasy Star.
No, it's just Phantasy Star. There's no final in it.
Final Fantasy Star.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say Final Fantasy.
That would be an interesting crossover, Final Fantasy Star.
Yeah, I like playing Final Fantasy Star Tropics.
Yeah.
Favorite game.
How long can you extend that name?
That's right.
But we're doing Fantasy Star 2 online once a month, and Blade and Soul.
Yeah, Blade and Soul's.
Although we never played Blade and Soul. We never played Blade and Soul together because Metal was detained at the time.
Yeah, family stuff.
No.
I do have it installed on my external hard drive, though. All I had to plug in,
Yeah.
play, and we're good.
Yeah. And the odd time I'm going to be playing. Oh, I know what we should try next week. I was saying going back to Fantasy Star. Would you be up for City of Heroes?
I'd have to install it, probably make a new account. Isn't it only on a private server now?
Yeah. It's pretty easy to install and all that.
I also
Is
have
that
to check to
free?
make sure there's room on my
Yeah, it's free.
hard drive. I know it doesn't take up a lot of space.
I've got a Canadian Shield looking character that's up to level 30.
Of course you do. You didn't even have to tell me. I would have just assumed that was the case.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to, with all the servers and all that, trying to create all the cross comics characters as close as I can.
Yeah. Bolt wants to know,
I've got a bunch of.
why is Genshin Impact so hard to pronounce, Rick?
I have no idea.
Why? I think the better question is, why is anything so hard to pronounce? Like, I get there's a lot of Chinese names in here, but the characters say it's doing weird
I was
things.
gonna say because I can see Rick still moving, but you froze up, so I knew it wasn't me.
Well, you guys never disconnected from me. I don't know what that was.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, like you guys were still
Oh,
talking the whole
TMI.
time. That's why I found out that I was disconnected.
Yeah, because we said something about it.
Yeah.
Are we still live on YouTube? Being dying.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Seems like we're okay.
I'm pretty sure YouTube. I
Here, let
forgot
me
to
try to
set
get
it
it
up to the
still up.
scheduled stream. So YouTube probably says that we're streaming the last episode. I'll fix that afterwards. Everything probably says we're streaming the last episode. I was kind of in a rush setting this up.
That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like it's a
Hey,
hard
I
thing to
think
fix in
Waiting
post.
to the last second to set it all up.
Mm-hmm.
I think the delay is actually reduced now.
Maybe.
Yeah. There's only like a 5-second delay now. That's
The delay
interesting.
could have been because they're not consistent. It used to be only on Thursdays that they did it, but they could have been doing maintenance. The ISP picks very weird and inconvenient times for me to do maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. Well, we're no longer on a 2-minute delay.
Yeah.
Caught up to real life.
And also, luckily, I hit record before we started talking, so the people listening to this after the fact will not have to deal with any disruptions.
That's good.
Yeah. Now we just got to remember whatever the hell we were talking about.
Genshin Impact and Detective.
Names that are hard to say. Or me, in particular. The fact that I'm no good at Chinese names.
You have to ask the question, is it Ni Hui Shua Potangwa Ma? Of course,
Yes.
you wouldn't. No, actually.
Sounds like Chinese to me.
The
Sounds
answer
Chinese
would
to me.
be no. Because I asked if you speak the common tongue, which you clearly don't.
Yay! How come it didn't do my elbow cough?
I don't
It did.
know.
I see it. I see it in the chat.
Oh, there it says elbow cough.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I speak a little Mandarin. It's probably why I don't
speak
really
a little
have
Japanese. Hi.
I do as well.
Very little.
If you to say that you
Speak
even
a little Klingon.
to say that you speak a little Japanese, you would say "Watashi wa Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu."
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a whole lot to say a little.
well, it says I, just the watashi or watashi wa because there's a connecting. Nihongo ga, which is Japanese, skoshi, which means a little, and wakarimasu, which means understand.
So squishy together. A little together.
Or if somebody were to ask you, you could just say, "Hi, skoshi."
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I speak a little Klingon. Kapla! Batak!
But you know, once you actually start understanding these languages a little bit, it becomes pretty easy to pronounce anything.
Yeah. Squishy! That'll probably be the one that sticks out. Squishy!
Squishy, yeah. Well, one of my favorite words, it doesn't exactly mean it, but it kind of means cool or awesome, like something you say to somebody in reply, and it's squishy. It almost sounds like you're saying squishy.
Yeah.
Yeah, squishy.
What else is happening in the world?
I don't know.
Well, I'm assuming the world is still on fire. The year is still
Always.
2020 after all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
There you
I
go.
somehow think the world's going to be a lot more on fire.
Yeah, I was about to
in 2
say.
days now.
I
3
find it
days from
funny
now.
that everybody's blaming the year as if, you know, the year before this wasn't equally as disastrous and the year after this won't also equally be disastrous. Like, everything magically changes when it hits New Year's.
Yeah, it's not going to be any better on January 1st, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately not. I think these 2 years are going to be 2020
Oh,
and
don't be like-
2021.
Don't be like so eager for the year to be over because next year's not going to be any better.
Well, something I've always laughed at.
Hey! Bullets say he's so hyped for Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah. Like, one thing I've always laughed at
Yeah, this.
is that most years are good for me, right? Like, I look at it positively. I tend to pull the good stuff out of it. I've had some pretty bad years in the past, but when I look at it, it's always been my fault that I had a bad year, right? So since then, I've had pretty good years. And every single year, I see, like, all these people, like, my Facebook friends list and stuff, like, this year's gonna be my year. And then by the halfway point to the end of the year, they're all just depressed and muddled, and they're just thinking, well, this next year's gonna be my year, and the cycle repeats every single year. It's like, well, you know, with the right attitude, taking the time to actually develop yourself and maybe learn something new, get better at a skill and stuff like that, every year could be your year. And of course, there's gonna be some things that happen that go wrong, and you can't control that. So you could have an exceptionally bad year, but not every year has to be an exceptionally bad year.
Yeah,
It's the
I think
summer of
everybody
joy.
just thinks it means they think they're going to get ahead instead of behind somehow, and they end up getting behind further than what they were,
Yeah.
or they just stayed the same for whatever reason, either their fault or the fault of some other idiot.
Well, it's kind of like this idea of magically being in a new chapter of a book, right? Like things have changed even though nothing has. Oh, it's the new year. It's a fresh start. It's like, well, if it's a fresh start, what's different, you know? Are you going to go about things differently, or are you just going to do the same exact thing, and hopefully things will run differently? Are you just letting luck decide things anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus, who's to say that your good luck or your good fortune or what have you has to start in January. You know?
Could have started in December, November, anytime before that.
Yeah,
Could start in
Yeah.
March next year. Who knows? You know.
that's right. You could have a bad couple of months, and then things could improve midway.
Well, that's why I say I don't do New Year's resolutions, because if I want to change something, I'm not waiting till New Year's or whatever.
Yeah, and the New Year is a very arbitrary thing too, right? Especially where we put it with the Gregorian calendar. It's in the middle of winter, right? It's after the winter solstice, so it's like what? It's a week after the season starts. Where do you actually put the start of this year, right? I would think a season marker is probably a better place to start or end a year if you're going to do anything. This is actually a new year right today. In the Irish tradition, the end of fall, beginning of winter, Samhain, is a marking of the year, right? And it changes from culture to culture, right? Like the Chinese New Year varies, but it's usually like in the end of February.
Yeah.
You know, and then the Hebrews have their own New Year. There's so many different ones.
That's right. The Hebrew New Year was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Probably when they decided to start keeping track of, time, each of these cultures. So, that's when their quote-unquote New Year begins. Yes. Yeah. Today is the first day of our calendar.
Well, I think it's less that. Most of them, it used to be tracking 2 seasons, right?
Yeah. But then again, we say winter, but you got to remember, like Australia and all that, if you go worldwide, it's the beginning of summer.
Yeah. So you'd expect
New
years to be in a different spot if you are above or below the equator.
Yeah. But because we're become global, a few 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, or whatever, we officially became global. To keep it consistent, some sort of standard. So everybody's not confused.
Well, it's kind of like the day, right? Which this one kind of makes sense. We picked that the start of day is when the sun goes up, but the start of a day, time-wise, we put it when it would be noon on the opposite side of the planet from us.
Yeah.
Like, noon makes sense. It's
what is that
the
behind
point.
You, Mel?
What is what behind me?
I don't know.
Is there something behind me?
Something got scary eyes.
Something with scary eyes.
Is it flounder?
Well, there is a flounder behind me. Yeah, from Little Mermaid. I don't know. If something with scary eyes. I don't know. Maybe there's a ghost behind me. I wouldn't be surprised.
Question is, where is it? Where is this thing supposed to be? That's scary.
It's probably gone.
It says it has scary eyes. Well, you don't see Flounder's eyes. Could be the thing. Could be the other thing up on the shelf there with the red feet.
Well, I don't even think you can see that size either.
Well, he might think the red feet are the eyes.
Maybe. It's like a bear.
Why is Eagle puking? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
I have to use the bathroom, so sure, we'll have to entertain you for a moment.
Oy. But yeah, it's very arbitrary when we pick times almost. When you think about it. Like, I'm sure somebody thought their reason was good when they picked it. But then everybody else, there's always going to be people who think the reason's wrong. Like, I find it weird that we reset our day at the polar opposite of noon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Noon makes sense, right? It's when the sun is perpendicular to the ground. At a perfect tangent.
Yeah.
But midnight, well, the moon is on a separate cycle, so it's not like when the moon is perpendicular. It's when the sun is perpendicular on the opposite side of the planet. And then sunrise and sunset vary throughout the year.
Yeah. So the day starts in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
The new day starts in the middle of the night. Because, yeah, once upon a time, as long as it was night out, it was night. It was not technically the next day.
Yeah.
People wouldn't have considered it the next day till the sun rose.
And if you really
Or
want
was
to be
starting to
technical,
rise.
the only marking point for the start or end of a day that you could pick is noon, because it's the point when the sun is perpendicular to the ground. That should be when it resets. But that doesn't make sense for how we do things, so obviously we're never going to use noon as the reset point.
Yeah, because you have it in the middle. We have the reset point in the middle of the quote unquote night when people are usually sleeping.
Yeah.
That way it feels like it's a new day, I guess. That's, I think, part of the thinking of it. That's why they did it in the middle of, the darkness when you're sleeping.
I'm back.
And I think we should take a note. As much as I like my Irish heritage, and it does make sense to use the end of the harvest season as the end of the year, I think we should take more of a note from the Chinese, historically, and the new year should be when spring begins. That's the one that makes the most sense for me.
Yeah.
And that's also why I typically tend to celebrate the Chinese New Year, just because it makes sense. Or what they call it, the Lunar New Year, because China's not the only one that celebrates it.
Dark and Light saying, wait, is Rick behind now? No, I shouldn't be. How could I be behind when those guys aren't?
I don't know. We're having a live conversation as far as I can tell. As live as it can be.
Yeah.
There's going to be like a second delay or anything like that, but that's because, or a half second. Because this feed has to go
not
from
enough
where
that
we
we
are
can.
to you.
Not that, I'd say we can really tell.
Oh, you can tell.
To me, I can't.
How's the weather in Dallas?
I don't know. I haven't been outside. I'm assuming it's okay. It's been warming up, but it's still been kind of cool, so it's comfortable, though I was getting used to the late fall, near winter temperatures. It's 61 outside at the moment.
It got remarkably cold after the hurricane came through.
Yeah.
But it was a decent day today.
But we also had like an Arctic wind that came out, so you probably just sweeped it up and it followed the path of the hurricane.
Bullet says he can't get the pre-order for the new systems. It's annoying. Just because you're in I think there's a new Xbox system coming out. Maybe new Nintendo.
There's new Xbox and PlayStation that have been announced, and they're available for pre-orders. Personally, I'm not interested in either. I think we went over this in a previous episode. I'm more interested in the news for Xbox, though, specifically because pretty much any of those games I'll be able to play on my computer. Yeah.
I just want to switch.
Yeah.
Again.
Which are most of the games that I won't ever be able to play on my computer. At least for a generation. Yeah. Until somebody actually gets a really good functioning emulator of the Switch. It usually takes almost the life cycle of a whole generation to get that stuff down. Because I know Citra took forever to get a good one. The one earlier on in the 3DS life cycle was horrible, and sometimes it wouldn't even start.
Yeah, Citra's pretty good. And of course they've got the Dolphin emulator for the Wii.
Yeah.
I don't know if that plays Wii U games.
I don't know. I know it plays GameCube games.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Wii and GameCube.
I think it was originally a GameCube emulator that was upgraded to Wii, wasn't it? Because I believe GameCube was Project Dolphin, and then the Wii was Revolution when it was still in the project phase. They always like to give
Right.
you these names so you don't know what the console's actually going to be called until it comes out.
Hmm.
Could you imagine if the GameCube actually looked like a dolphin? That would have been weird. What were you going to do? Put the disc into its, like, blowhole or something?
Hmm.
That'd glow.
Cell phone chip. Yeah, I kept wishing that they would come out with a Switch Pro with the new Tegra chip because it's light years faster than the one they used.
They keep talking
Um,
about doing something like that, but they won't give any hard information or actually make a firm announcement.
Yeah, and I'm sick of waiting, so I'm just gonna get a new one now. And I'm sure they'll announce the Pro the week after I buy one.
Probably.
So they've got emulator. Do they have emulators for the PlayStation 3 and all that, 2 and all that?
I don't know about 3
X-
yet. I'm sure they should buy it for 3, though, since it's already been a whole generation from 4. But yeah, for PlayStation 1 and 2, it's easy to get emulators. Not so much for Xbox, and I think there's a good reason for that. And it's because Xbox runs on DirectX. That's where it gets its name. The original Xbox is the Direct Xbox. So for most games that people want to play, they just create an executable for that game. Or if you just want to play the original Halo, there was an executable for the original Halo for the what's it called?
And is there and the Wii? The Wii. Do I have anything for the Wii? I got some games on disc still from like the Wii and stuff like that
Yeah.
that I can't play because my Wii got damaged. My original Xbox isn't working. My Xbox 3 isn't working,
Yeah, the
and
problem is,
neither is my PlayStation 2.
you would think it would be easy to get a hold of a Wii, but it's not. Because the Wii is one of the highest selling consoles in history. It's like in the top 3. But most people never traded their Wii in. Which is why what the Just Dance games can justify porting the most recent versions to the Wii. The last 3 versions are on the Wii, despite the fact that otherwise the Wii hasn't gotten support in years. And it's because most people kept theirs, so it's actually hard to go to like any used game store or eBay and actually get a Wii. They go fast.
Yeah. It's not even like I'm looking to get one. I can't really afford to buy any system, but it'd be nice, sort of, I guess, to play the game, especially if I could do it off my computer or whatever. So, and
Really
with these emulators, do you stick the original disc in your disc drive in the computer, or
Some of them you can.
is that how it works?
But for the most part, you usually have to create an image file if you want to do something like that. The best way to do that is to just not deal with the disc and to go and get a ROM.
Okay.
The ROM for the games that are on disc are basically just a disc file anyway, like a disc image. Which is why these disc-based games usually need bin files and stuff for the operating system to work. But you can usually, port a package that has all the bins and stuff that you need already in it.
Yeah. Because a while ago I tried.
3 emulator, by the way.
There is one?
Yeah.
I figured there would be, yeah.
Because a while ago when I was still still using my laptop, as you know, my other channel was doing a little bit of gaming through emulators on that. So
Yeah.
that didn't last long. Hopefully, Friday nights last longer. Well, with somebody to play with or whatever, somebody there, people actually coming by. My other channel doesn't have as many people, so it was a way to try and build that up, but didn't really work.
Yeah, the
Or
naming
maybe I didn't keep
conventions
at it.
I think we talked about this before too. The naming conventions for systems are weird, other than PlayStation, because at least PlayStation's just like, numbering it works. We're just gonna do that. But then you have Nintendo started. No, they're not even the one that started this. I think technically Atari did. They were using numbers, but then they started adding like names to their numbers, and their numbers also didn't make sense. Like you'd have like a 3500 and stuff like that. It's like there's not 3500 Ataris. What are you doing? But when it got to like the really wacky stuff, Nintendo was the one that really started that. And then Xbox.
Yeah.
There's not even wacky. It's just like, what are you doing, Xbox? At least Nintendo, every system except for the Wii and the Wii U, kind of have a different name. I guess you could say the DS and 3DS don't have different names. So that whole generational switch was kind of dumb. But otherwise, it's like, it starts to go smoothly. You've got the Nintendo Entertainment System. Got it. It's exactly what it says it is. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Okay, it's the next model up. It kind of makes sense. Nintendo 64. Kind of get it. 64-bit processing. Makes sense.
Yeah.
GameCube. You're starting to lose me, but at least it looks like a cube. I'm getting it. The Wii. Because Wii would like
Hey,
to
you're
play.
gonna have fun. You're gonna say wee.
No, the whole reason they named it that was just for a pun. For marketing. It was
Yeah.
good marketing, though. Like, don't get me wrong. With Iwata coming up and going, we would like to play, it was a really good campaign. But the whole reason it's named that was simply for a pun. And, you know, you flip the W upside down to an M and you have your Mii's. So it keeps the same pun. The Wii U.
Yeah.
Now you completely lost me. Like, I get it. Wii U. Sort of, kind of, like, it's a stretch. Sounds like a fire truck going Wii U. And then it's like the Switch is starting to make sense again. It's like, okay, I get the gimmick. You know, you switch between handheld and console. At least this makes more sense than the Wii U. But then Xbox is like, you know, Nintendo, we see what you're doing. Let's one-up you. Xbox 360. Okay. Even Bullet brought up. It's like a revolution. It's going all back around. Makes sense. The third one, Xbox One. But we already had an Xbox. How is this the one? And then it's like, well, you know, 360 makes a full revolution. It's like, okay, well, now we have 3 Xbox Ones if you want to use trigonometry. And now we have the Xbox
It's the
Series.
one. It's the one to have. I don't know.
And was there a 1S and a 1X?
Yeah, there's a 1S and a 1X. And then there's a Series X and a Series S, which is the new console.
Yeah.
Like, at least Nintendo...
That threw me for a loop.
You can tell what system it is. Xbox is kind of like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I spending money on the right thing?
I couldn't figure out the difference between the 1S, the 1X, the Series S, and the Series X. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
And PlayStation, as we said, that's fairly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
To be fair, Sega
Most straightforward.
was kind of up Nintendo's alley with their naming, too. Because you've got, like, the Sega Saturn, the Sega Genesis, the Sega Master System. Some of these things are even doing the same things as each other. Nobody really knows what direction. Then the Dreamcast. It's like, why is it?
But yeah, well,
32X add-on to the Saturn?
Yeah.
Or the... something?
yeah. No. 32X was on to the Genesis. Because you had Master System, then Genesis, and then then they made a CD thing for the Genesis, which was the 32. Well, actually, I think the 32X was actually a semi-portable between, you know, it combined the things easier together for the cart and disc for the Genesis.
Yeah, it was like a thing that you had to stick
Project
on top of
Mars,
it.
as they called it. Because, you know, just like Nintendo, they wanted to have fancy project names for everything, too. PC graphic cards are far worse because not only do they have like a weird name for the card, but then PC graphics cards run their names and numbers through generations, almost like hotel room numbers or apartment complex numbers. But they're not consistent, so you'll have like one generational line will have 4 numbers long, and the other one will only have 3 numbers long. But you're supposed to know the things that like, well, the 3 number one is usually the mobile, so if you find the same starting number, it's supposed to be the same as the main PC version. It's all confusing. Like, I know how it works, but even knowing how it works is confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, it's not hard, guys. S are base models, X are the higher end models.
But what's the difference between the 1S and the Series S?
Well, because the series is the next generation, and the 1 is still part of the 1.
Yeah, because
No, it actually doesn't
it's the
confuse me
Xbox
at all.
One S, the Xbox One X, and then I guess the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X.
Oh, I'm hyperbolating. I'm inflating this, right? Oh, exaggerating. Because I'm looking at it from the perspective of a parent who might be buying this for the kid. I can see the names and I know exactly what it is. But I'm also like engrossed in video game culture. I see the news and stuff like this. But a parent is not going to know what's going on if they're not paying attention. It's the same problem with the Wii U. They actually had to have commercials where they were making fun of this, and they had to have like kids explaining in the commercial to their parents that the Wii U was a different system than the Wii, because a lot of them thought it was like an add-on or something that, you know, like the tablet went to the Wii. They didn't know it was a completely different system. They thought you could just buy the game for the Wii and it would play on it. You can't name your consoles that close to each other unless it's a numbered system.
Yeah. I knew they were different, but, you know, they look a lot alike, too. You know, even the base system.
So what's the difference between
but suddenly you got a tablet controller.
So what's the difference between the Xbox One and the Xbox One S? Because Bullet's saying the S was the base, but there was an Xbox One before there was a One S. Right?
Yeah, it was both of those. It is the base, but there was like a half generational step, right? Like sometimes when you come out with just a better model of a system, those two things were like that half generational step. So I guess you could even call like the original version the Xbox L for launch if you really want to. The Xbox One L is the launch version of the Xbox.
It'd be probably like when PlayStation 2 went from the fat version to the slim version.
Yeah. So they should have started with the Xbox One S, and then the next one should have been an E, and then the best one should have been X.
Yeah.
Xbox One SE.
So we just go back to the sex box jokes like we used to back in the day.
That's right. Just like Tesla. That's how they named the Tesla cars.
Visually, the systems.
They had a 3 and an X.
Yeah. But yeah, visually the systems do look very different. The new one looks like a refrigerator, which is why they made that giveaway refrigerator as a joke. Little tiny refrigerator. Well, it's not that small.
I prefer not to look at systems.
Yeah. But, you know, despite them visually looking different, you got to understand how stupid parents are in this. Well, I want to say stupid, ignorant parents are in this regard, right? They don't even know what the last generation one looked like. You know, they go to the store, they say what they want, they see the name on the box, they don't pay attention to the shape of it. Some of these people used to think all VCRs looked the same. Yeah. Yeah, he says the Xbox One S is the slim. We already came to that conclusion,
Yeah.
Yeah. but there's going to be a slight delay period, so he's always going to be slightly in the past.
Yeah. Well,
unless the delay's getting worse again.
although
Who knows?
you know, well, I never had that problem with my mom. My mom was somewhat up on the systems, so you know. Although with as you know the Xbox One S and all that, that's the confusing part for me. So then again, I'm not buying any systems lately, so I'm not really super up on it because I can't afford $300 or $400 for
my problem is
a game system.
My mom was always up on playing games. She herself always got confused by the systems. She was relying on my dad to go and buy the stuff for her and stuff like that. Or when we got older, she was relying on me and my brothers to do that stuff. And even now, she'll talk about like, hey, you remember this game? What system was on? Or she's constantly saying that a game was on a system that it wasn't. Just because she can't distinguish between them. Like she gets confused whether a game was on the NES or the SNES, right? The Super Nintendo, because she just doesn't remember the difference between them sometimes. Like me, it's pretty easy because graphically you could tell most games. You could tell if something was 8-bit or if it was 16-bit. But she can't even look at a game that way. It doesn't process in her head like the graphical difference in quality between the games. And she can't even remember what year a game was.
I'm sometimes amazed, going back to look at those original systems.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes amazed at what all games came out for the original NES, like, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, all on the original NES.
Yeah.
But there's such a big difference from 1 to 3. They were really innovating within the same generation.
Yeah. Well, and you can only even look at the difference between 1 and 3, really. Unless you're looking at Lost Worlds, but Lost Worlds, or Lost Levels, which is the actual Super Mario Brothers 2, was done in the exact same, what's it called? I guess you would call engine, but basically the same assembly code. They just moved things around, and added some assets. Because 2, as most people know, was Doki Doki Panic. Say for the people listening who may not know that. So it's a completely different game, and we're really just looking at 1 to 3 in the advancement of Mario development. And it is a big difference, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny, they in those original systems, since they were all cartridge-based, they could actually do things with the cartridge that you can't really do with like a disc. Like they can actually add memory chips to the cartridge and add more storage.
Yeah.
So early era NES games may have only had a certain amount of storage, whereas late era they can actually add more storage to that same cartridge.
Yeah. Or another thing was when they added batteries to it, and now we can actually save information because this battery keeps that bit of memory active the whole time and you don't lose it.
Right.
Like the first Legend of Zelda on Nintendo, it had the save function.
As far as I know, that was actually the first game to have a save battery in it.
Yeah.
Well, it says, I worked at a game store. Number of times someone asked if we had the Mario, which could be a Mario game or a Nintendo system.
Yeah. See, the bullet knows exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to how just ignorant parents and stuff can be, And I totally agree with what he said. It's like, well, the thing is now that everything is gone, the base and pro model route with mid-game refreshes and stuff, people want to upgrade since tech is always changing. Like, I totally get that too. They just need clearer systems for ignorant parents. Because, they can't even get Mario's names down. And some games have confusing names, right? Like, Mario's got series within series. Right? Like, you have the new Super Mario line now, which has a bunch of different names. Like, there's the new Super Mario Brothers U. And that's the one for the Wii U, but have a clueless parent asking, which one you want and how many new Super Mario Brothers there are. Or you have the difference between Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World.
Mm-hmm.
Donkey Kong
course,
Country
yeah.
and Donkey Kong Land at the same time back in the SNES and Game Boy era.
And the Super Mario Brothers U came out for Switch. And
Yeah.
then there's
Yeah, literally.
Breath of the Wild came out for Wii U and Switch at the same
Yeah.
time.
Twilight
Make sure you
Princess
get
for
Eagle-
GameCube and Wii.
Eagle says this is the best role-playing game streamer he's ever seen.
You roll.
And that's a problem for almost everything, right? Because most of the time, and we've talked about this too, it's just easier to do this, especially when you're not used to a new hardware yet and you don't know how making a new game is really going to work. It's easier to practice by porting a game over. And even the ports usually are trash, but at least you have some time to get used to the system. A lot of the end console, like end generation games, are also the beginning generation games. You'll put it on both systems at the same time. And I've seen people in these generational switches where they haven't gotten the console yet, and their parent will accidentally buy the version for the new console they don't have, or they just got the new console, traded in their old one to get it, and the parent buys the last gen version that they don't have anymore. I've seen both things happen.
Well, at least at that point, you're most likely to go back to the store and say, "Hey, as long as you have the receipt, I got the wrong version."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was just watching Gaming Historian just came out with a new video on the DOS ports of Mega Man.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting story. And that was back in the age when a port, at least what he was talking about, these ports, they were just rewritten from scratch. They didn't actually port anything. They just looked at the original game and just rewrote it and tried to make it work similarly.
Yeah, it's like we have two computers up, or we'll print out the code on it and just have it next to it while you're going back. You're like, oh, well, that's not going to work.
Well, this guy didn't get any code. Like the guy who did Mega Man for DOS and Mega Man 3 for DOS.
Just had to play the game and tried to remake it.
Yeah, he had no code. He actually had no code to go off of. He wrote it all from scratch. In fact, he didn't even have assets. They had to recreate all the graphics, all the assets. And of course, it's quite a different game. I mean, they didn't have the same bosses or anything like that. And they were talking to him about, there was some other game that he ported for Capcom where it was unique in that they did get the assets. They didn't get any of the code, but at least they had the graphic assets and they could reuse those. But he still had to rewrite the code from scratch.
Yeah. Well, we even have tales of stuff like that happening now. Obviously, it's more of a pain in some ways, but less than a pain in others when it happens now, because now you can use just plop down an engine to build the game in and stuff like that, but you still have to recreate all the assets and everything. But a recent story was Toys for Bob doing the Spyro Reignited trilogy. They did not have any of the assets of the original game. Right? None of it was kept. Yeah. I'm sure you probably could have found like a really talented person that could have just like popped in the ROMs for it and just ripped all the assets out, and then they could have just like modified it. But they didn't have any of the assets, and they basically had to make everything from scratch, playing the game next to them, and then figuring out how things work. In many ways, I think it actually runs smoother than if they did have the assets, because I remember playing the original Spyro, and it controlled like crap. It was a fun game, but it controls like you expect a PlayStation 1 game to control, you know? And like the turning would be way too tight. It would just jerk out of nowhere and stuff like that sometimes. And the new version, I've seen people play it. I didn't play it myself, but I've even asked for comparison if people remember, and it's smooth. It's the way you'd expect a modern game that was made from scratch to play.
Well, they didn't have source control as much, back in the day. And I recall, like, apparently, I mean, some games like what was it, Final Fantasy VIII or something? Like they didn't have any of the original source when they were trying to, come up with a new port
Yeah.
for a new system. They didn't necessarily have the original code.
That happens all the time, too. They lose that stuff. Like 7,
Yeah.
they don't have the PlayStation version of it anymore, like the original PlayStation. But they had ported it to PC at the time. There was a PC version of the game. It is inferior in some ways because the MIDIs don't loop properly and stuff like that. Sometimes if you're on the overworld map for too long, the background music just cuts until you go to another area. And that's the version that is ported everywhere now, because that's just the one that they have the assets to. They have that to port. If you play on Steam, it's the old PC version. If you play on Switch, it's the old PC version. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think we talked about this before when we did the episode on the console information. But all Xbox One games run on the Series system, X and S, as well as 360 and the original Xbox titles that are already backwards compatible. Now, there's a difference.
Oh, that's cool.
The S version, from what I heard, is playing them at native capacity, while the X version of certain games, like the 360 and One games, are going to play enhanced versions of it. I don't quite know how that works, but that is what I read. It might be digital only. I don't know if that works for discs. I don't know if you even can do it for discs. I haven't read fully into it. I'm sure he can give more information. But yeah, it's a shame when you lose stuff like that,
Yeah. You would think they would have kept all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they probably tried. But you have to understand, like, you probably have some old hard drives, right? But have you ever tried to transfer information over multiple generations of computing and even keep track of everything? Even when you try, it's pretty easy to just lose stuff. Or files get corrupted, or one thing or another. You've got hardware and software that just aren't compatible anymore.
Yeah.
It's easier than you think to just lose information.
Yeah.
That's why they need to just print out all the codes for everything into their own, like, encyclopedia volume. Oh, that'd be awful. I mean, with OCR now, it wouldn't be that bad if you just, like, rescanned all the pages in and they could rip the code off of. But could you imagine you just find this old tome and it's just, like, the code for a game and you have to re-input everything by hand? That'd be a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Millions of lines of code.
And then even with OCR, because it's not perfect, you'd get, like, most of it right, but then one letter would be read wrong, and it would just screw up that section. And you have to go in and find out what the thing is that's messed up.
Yeah, you'd still have to...
Why is this character not clipping to this wall when I jump at it? It adds ray tracing and HDR lighting? Okay, thanks for that. I wanted to know what the difference was. Yeah. Ray tracing seems to be a big deal right now. I was reading news earlier where they were talking about games that won't have ray tracing on Xbox and PlayStation. And a lot of the comments, too, people were, like, really mad. It's like, is it really that necessary? You played these games without them originally. Like, I know they'd make them look a little bit better, but did you not enjoy the game the first time?
Well, what's ray tracing exactly? For those of us.
I haven't read it. I'm not entirely sure. I'm assuming.
It's where.
Oh, you know?
It's basically, it's looking at light sources, and it's basically tracing individual rays of light from the source all the way through the scene or whatever. So It's very, very realistic
Oh, okay.
lighting.
So it's basically what it
So,
sounds like. Like the name is a very apt one.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You take the source of light, and it's actually, yeah, it's dynamically generating where the light, and it'll go and it'll bounce off objects, so you can have, partially reflective objects. If you got like a shiny wall or something, the light will actually bounce off the wall and illuminate other objects in the scene and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, that's like
So
not.
it's
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 not the end of the
really
world if you don't
complex.
have it, though.
Yeah, especially if the original game didn't do that.
Yeah.
So the most astounding sort of examples that I've seen have been like Minecraft with ray tracing,
Hmm.
where they'll show like, you'll be in a room with, they'll show indirect lighting where it's coming in through an opening from the outside. It'll bounce off the wall and light up the room in a very realistic and
Oh, okay.
dynamic way. Really cool, but it is very, very, graphics processor intensive.
So that's probably why only the X version will have that stuff when it comes to the
Yeah.
enhanced versions of older games.
Yeah. As opposed to ray casting, which is a completely different thing,
What's
which is
the
a way
difference?
of rendering a 3D environment using 2D hardware.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that. I forgot that was the name of it, but I know what you're talking about now, yeah.
Yeah. Ray casting is basically how they did Doom.
Yeah. So they did Doom. It's
Original.
also how they generated the stuff for the original Star Fox game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically coming from your eye, going out to an object and figuring out how tall or wide or whatever it's supposed to be based on the,
Yeah.
distance
The
from your
field of
eye.
view. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually explained how that worked before. I just completely forgot what the name was, like on this program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did a ray casting demo at a conference on in iOS before iOS had like fully 3D graphics capability. So I actually did sort of a Doom-like demo where I did ray casting to project, 3D walls and stuff, so you can walk around the environment in 3D on an iPhone, early iPhone.
Oh, he says you can use it for sound as well, ray tracing.
Oh yeah.
Does it give you
I
like
guess so, yeah.
dynamic sound effects, kind of like if something is in the distance, it gets quieter, but if it has like a wall to echo against, it can appear louder than it's supposed to.
Yeah, I guess it could also have echoing effects. They're very realistic. It's amazing. Eventually, we're just going to be able to actually
Emulate reality.
simulate the real. Yeah.
That's the problem, though, because once we get to that point, and we can prove that it is possible to simulate reality, then it brings into question, were you in a simulation that was realistic the entire time?
Could be. I'm looking around. I'm like,
Yeah.
look at you.
Because it's
Everything looks alright.
that's where the question comes from, because if it's likely that you could simulate all of reality, right? Or at least all of perceivable reality, because you don't need to simulate an entire universe, right? You only need to simulate what can be reached with the field of view. Then it becomes highly unlikely that you're in the top layer. Doesn't mean you couldn't be. It becomes unlikely because you have to think, well, how many times before this has that technology already been reached within whatever the layer above was?
Yeah, right. Like if you create a virtual reality world here, it's being simulated inside the simulation.
Yeah.
So,
Grandfather simulator.
virtual reality within virtual reality within virtual reality within virtual reality within
Yeah,
virtual reality.
And
Yeah, but then there has to be somewhere where there is reality. Because how can you have virtual reality without reality?
Well, unless
Question
it's
is, can
like
they
turtles all the way down.
how does the
Unless it's
original system manage to process everything quickly enough that you've got a reality inside a reality?
I don't know. Maybe
Eventually
it's
you'll-
maybe there's some advanced form of compression that we just don't understand yet.
Yeah, but
Where
see,
like the compressed version inside of it doesn't perceive itself as being compressed.
Mhm.
I would say that if this is a virtual reality, and we create a virtual reality, the virtual reality we're in doesn't have to do the virtual reality that in because it's not really virtual reality then, is it? Yes. It's just a
I'm trying to
simulation.
follow your
of
speech pattern here.
it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think it out.
Bullet is explaining that you can, with ray tracing of sound, can bounce around an environment.
So it's kind of what I was saying. Yeah.
Just like real reality.
Point on a sort of separate topic. It's next Saturday, right? 3 p.m.
Yeah. I guess we haven't got any confirmation that it's going to be tomorrow, but honestly, next Saturday, I have enough done that we could do a session tomorrow if we wanted to. I've got all the important stuff, but if it's next Saturday, I'll have some stuff ahead too, so I won't have to fall back behind.
But I'm saying based off of Dillard's comment,
Yeah.
he's not planning on doing it tomorrow, so it would be next Saturday.
Mm.
Yep.
I think.
And I've been drinking too much Pepsi. I gotta take another break. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what we were on. Before we got into virtual reality.
Bro, we just ray light tracing and all that stuff, all the various
the
systems
cool stuff that they can do now, yeah. It is kind of cool what games can do, because, you remember too, what games used to be like.
Yeah, heck, I remember playing the Atari. I don't remember playing Pong.
I've played Pong. Not when it was new, obviously.
Well, I think I played Pong, but not on the quote-unquote system that it came out on. I think I played Pong on the computer.
Yeah. I think we didn't play much of it, but I think we had, what was it, the 8600? I think was one of them, or it was like I don't remember. Maybe it was 88, but we had one like an Atari system. We just called it the brown box, and it had been sitting there. My dad just had it forever. We played it a couple times, but the last time I actually played Pong wasn't that long ago on an Atari. And it was when I was at the Screw Attack Gaming Convention. They had like a console gaming room set up where there was just a bunch of consoles plugged into TVs. And I was playing with somebody, and I was getting really pissed off too. Because I got the side that was broken. So the game was glitched, and it didn't matter if I went all the way to the top corner and connected with the ceiling. If the ping pong ball hit the corner, it would just go through my paddle anyway, and they would still get a point. Like, how am I supposed to? You could just aim for that corner every time. How am I supposed to play this? I think I lost like 10-3.
Playing it's easy. Playing it's easy. How are you supposed to win?
Yeah. I think I lost like 10-3. Or something like that. It was like ridiculous. They could just. How am I supposed to play fairly even if I'm touching the ceiling, your ball can just go through my paddle? But it doesn't work the
Yeah.
same way if I try to do it to you. Damn, broken Atari.
What are we
games.
But then again, at the same time, you know, like it's hard to aim in that game for stuff.
No, it's actually really easy once you figure out how the ball bounces. Yeah, we were talking about Atari. I was playing at SGC, at the Screw Attack Gaming Convention. They had a bunch of like consoles hooked up in their console gaming room. And I was on an Atari, and we were playing, and I was player 2, and the game was broken. So even if my panel touched the ceiling, it would just go through the paddle at the top there. And it would do that on my side, but it wouldn't do it on the other side. And I lost like 10-3, and it's like, this is not fair. Like, literally, there's nothing I can do to stop this.
Yeah.
So you play again on the other side.
No, nobody wanted to play that side. They're like, hey, I'll play you, but only if I get player 1.
Yeah.
Well, then you come by later and say, yeah, I'll play. Yeah, if I get player 1.
It's not fair.
But yeah, my first home system was the 2600, followed by the Coleco, then the Atom, and then a Nintendo, which I bought myself. Then Super Nintendo. Then I think I got a Genesis finally. And then I forget.
I had an Atari
What order things?
2600.
Which one do you have?
Used to play Atari 2600
Oh, 2600, okay.
to play Kaboom.
Yeah, like
Kaboom.
I wouldn't say the first Atari system, but probably close to it. The one that was the most famous, I think.
Mhm.
Lots of people had it. It was cheap, so
Yeah.
There used to be all kinds of competitors, though, back in the day. You know, like, you have, like, those ColecoVisions and the Intellivision and stuff like that.
Mhm.
The market's
yeah.
kind
And
of dry
television
now.
was. What was that?
I said the market's kind of dry now, but some of these people are trying to bounce back.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's.
For
You have like
hardware,
what
it's
3
kinda
major
dry.
systems right now, and that's what you had back then. You know.
Yeah, there's-
Atari and Television Coleco. Now it's Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo.
Mhm.
And when I think when what's the name, Atari and Coleco systems sort of went belly up for the reasons that they did. Nintendo and Sega made their own systems. And then in the middle, there's been a whole bunch of major ones. Like Sega and Nintendo were the two major ones.
Well, I mean,
quite
there
some
actually used to
time,
be
and-
quite a few different things that people forget. Like, you also had the Commodore 64 and stuff like that. There was a lot of variability prior to, like, what
Yeah,
you
but the
now
Commodore
consider the console wars.
But the Commodore, again was supposed to be a computer.
It was
so-
supposed to, but it
Yeah.
really was. Well, I mean, I guess it was comparable to what some computers were at the time, yeah, because, computing was a lot worse back then. But it was still another option.
But I'm thinking after Sega, after the major three fell at that point, you had Nintendo, Sega, and TurboGrafx 16,
Yeah,
3DO, and 4 or 5 others. I think 4 or 5 other systems as well at that
Yeah.
time. And eventually they died out for whatever reason. And you ended up
Usually bad marketing.
You ended up with
Right,
Nintendo
yeah.
staying in, and 2 other companies coming up.
Yeah.
Now, and Nintendo was around even from the beginning because they weren't making their system, but they were making games for the Atari and the Coleco.
Well, and they were
probably
still
the
making
Intellivision.
things prior to systems. Nintendo was in the handheld market before anyone else. If you go back and look at the Game and Watch systems, now they weren't all
GameCube
available worldwide, but the Game and Watch handhelds were very popular in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Precursor to the cursed Tiger games.
Yeah.
Tiger Electronics. Totally saturated the market with those things.
But yeah, Nintendo was the one who basically saved the industry, though, by trying to rebrand things as toys, as kids' stuff. Because they came back out of the crash. Just why those previous companies really went under was because of the crash.
Yeah. Well, them and Sega, because Sega came out right at the same time, but Sega came out with the Sega Master System, which did not do as well as Nintendo, if I'm correct.
Most people won't even credit Sega with helping save the crash. It was basically all Nintendo. I don't think Sega really would have succeeded if Nintendo didn't do as well as they did.
Yeah. Well, as soon as their Master System didn't do that good, they brought out the Genesis, which, was the first 16-bit system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sega was known for, I think, the sports games, being good at that. And then, of course, Nintendo was like, if you want a sports game, go to Sega. If you want something else, go to...
Well, Sega was also known for... the Atari Jaguar, yeah. Sega was also known for having, like, the uncensored versions of games, too. Right? Like, so if you got, like, a fighting game on the Super Nintendo, the blood effects would be taken out of it. But if you got, like, say, the same fighting game on Sega, they would still have the blood effects on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's even the thing, too, with the Genesis was out before the Super Nintendo by 2 or 3 years, I think. So, if they're bringing out a fighting game like Mortal Kombat on that, Nintendo can't really compete with, Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
Though, typically, if we're talking about performance, when the Super Nintendo did come out, many of the games that did end up on both would perform better on the Super Nintendo for certain reasons.
Yeah.
But they had sound card differences too, so some games sounded better on one system than it did on the other and such like that.
Right. But you're right, the Super NES came out 2 years after the Genesis, so Genesis was competing with the NES.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, and then Nintendo held their own.
Yeah, they did great.
Which is
that's
sort of remarkable.
It's part of what I was talking about, where the later generation NES games were very advanced compared to the earlier generation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was looking up like Dragon Quest. I mean, Dragon Quest it came out with 1, 2, 3, and 4 at least on the original NES.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if 5 was 5 on the original, or was that
no 5. I think 4 was the last one on the NES.
Yeah, and I mean 4 was light years beyond the original, because they could improve it right on the cartridge.
Yeah. Well, and also look right. Here's a game that a lot of people forget was on the NES, mostly because of localization and stuff. But some people think it was the generation after, and you look at the original Earthbound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, compared to... Well, you mean the original Earthbound?
The original Mother, yeah.
Yeah, Mother compared to Earthbound, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like night and day.
But
they're on the
I'm
same
so
system.
used because now they just sell it as Earthbound 0. Because nobody knows the name Mother. So Mother 1, they're like, what's that? Earthbound 0. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like,
but it's sort of remarkable that the Nintendo's 8-bit system competed with a 16-bit system for like 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I had friends who had a Genesis. And they would always brag about the graphics and everything because it was, tons better. But the Nintendo games that I had, because I only ever had an NES, I found to be a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So And then when Super NES came out, it just blew the Genesis out of the water, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took their time in making their 16-bit system, but that's what Sega had to do. That's what Sega had to do. Go ahead.
The old Nintendo quote, right? You remember what they used to say, too. It's now you're playing with power. They would never use that now compared to the other system because they're not even looking for, like, technically blowing people out of the water. They'd rather just make better games, but that was the thing that they were trying to sell it on, was that old phrase, is now you're playing with power.
Yeah, well, it had, Mode 7 and, like, parallax scrolling and way more colors on the screen at once.
Of course, both of them
were
always using bullshit to sell things, too, like Sega's blast processing, which really was a meaningless phrase. Like, which you get now in the industry all the time, where they just throw meaningless phrases out because it sounds cool and it sells things.
Mm-hmm. Bullet played through Dragon Quest 1 recently.
I was going to say something about that Nintendo.
About blast processing. Way more blast.
But yes, Sega had to do it to survive, to go to their 16-bit system, because nobody cared about their Master
Although
System.
I had a friend who had a Sega Master System, which had the original Phantasy Star on it. And I love that. I was like, I was jealous.
It's actually one of Sega's best series is Phantasy Star. Like, even way before people got hooked on the online, just the actual classic turn-based series is probably one of the best things Sega has, and they just didn't give it enough respect throughout the years.
I had Final Fantasy, but I found Phantasy Star to be really cool looking, and I never got to really play it. Fantasy Master System.
I might have played Dragon Quest 4, I'm not sure. Or I'm thinking Dragon Warrior, I'm not sure whether...
Well, they called it Dragon Warrior here in North America originally. It's Dragon Quest, but the translated name was Dragon Warrior 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's only now when they're released that they properly call them Dragon Quest. Like, I had Dragon Warrior 2 growing up, and that was my favorite one. I've played the other ones later on, but growing up I played 2 all the time. And when people started calling it Dragon Quest, I was confused as fuck. It's like, what, Dragon Quest? This looks like Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Final Fantasy.
How dare you, Israel?
Yeah, so Phantasy Star, I guess 2, 3, and 4 all came out for the Genesis.
Yeah.
But the original was on the Master System.
But we had that same problem with Final Fantasy, right? Because we didn't get Final Fantasy 2, 3, or 5 here in North America.
Well, that was way more confusing because at least with Dragon Quest, they called them Dragon Warrior.
But it was the same numbers. Yeah. So 1 was 1, 2 was 2, 3 was 3, and 4 was 4. You don't have Final Fantasy 1 is 1, okay. Final Fantasy 2 is actually 4, okay, and Final Fantasy 3 is actually 6.
Yeah. That was very...
That's here, so what would have been 4, 5, and 6 here?
Well, there wasn't for a while. It went from Final Fantasy 3, which was actually Final Fantasy 6, straight to 7. Because when they did the worldwide release of 7, they just used the proper name for it.
That must have confused us.
It confused a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, I went from Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 7. I was like, what the heck? What happened?
Yeah.
I don't think it was until 7 came out that I found out, oh, wait, they skipped a bunch.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even get 3 in North America until the DS port. That is also now the mobile/PC port of the game.
And I think I found out that it's not that they skipped 4, 5, and 6. It's that they skipped 2, 3, and 5. Well,
Yeah, but you would have thought here in North America they would have come out with, you know, a different version of 4, 5, and 6, you know, before they hit 7, you know. But you know,
No,
they didn't.
they just fixed. They just fixed the timeline. That's all they did.
That's right. Yeah, Bullet says Final Fantasy Star, or sorry, Final
Fantasy
Fantasy Star, Fantasy Star on Master System and Genesis are great JRPGs. I should play them. I've never played even the original 4 Fantasy Stars.
Yeah, they are good games.
That should
Easy
be.
to emulate too. Those systems emulate very well.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
definitely get Master System.
Shining Force
In
is
fact,
also
I-
good. I agree with that.
I think I can download an emulator for my SNES Mini for both the Sega Master System and Genesis.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go back and play all the Final Fantasies in order.
You could. I was thinking of doing that myself for like a Let's Play series. I just haven't scheduled the time to do it.
Yeah, just record it or whatever. I'm not sure whether I do it live or just record it. Should I record it and then just speed it up? Or
You record it and just clip through all the grinding parts. Unless you hear yourself saying something funny. That's what I would do.
Especially Final Fantasy 2 has a lot of grinding.
Oh yeah, the way it
Like
works.
the actual,
but
where you
yeah,
have to get your own characters to get them to level up.
I played Final Fantasy VII. That was my first Final Fantasy game, and I played it on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah. The worst
And
part about
multiple
2.
just hated it.
The worst thing to try to level up, and talk about hitting your own characters to level up, is the shield. Because the shield has an RNG chance of proccing. So, but you also have to use it to get experience for it. So it's kind of just random whether you'll get upgrades for the shield. And that's why you have to hit yourself, because the more times that character gets hit, the higher chance the RNG procs the shield so you can actually level it. It's a really dumb... Like, it was kind of interesting idea, very innovative, but...
Very experimental.
Yeah, very experimental. Not very bright in hindsight.
Yeah.
But at least
Yeah,
it
basically,
worked.
you don't level up at all, right? In
No.
the Final Fantasy 2.
There
It's just
is
every
kind of
stat.
a base level. It doesn't tell you what it is, but your base level is basically your HP stat.
Yeah.
Right, and you can track what your character's internal level is by tracking your HP. Because there is like an unmarked internal level.
Would only go up if you got hit, right?
But that one was easy because you were going to get hit by monsters, right? And that one went up faster than the shield did. So that wasn't the worst part. It was just like if you really wanted to level up that shield, you were basically going to have to attack yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, questions on topic but off topic. Were you able to find out anything on that Final Fantasy 11 online?
No, but
private
to be
server?
fair, after he didn't respond, I didn't even look into it because I've been spending all this time making assets for our Final Fantasy tabletop RPG.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't think you had looked into it yet.
Yeah, this has been taking a lot of time to make all these assets, man. A lot
just
of those
figured
first
I'd
ones
ask
were like Dragon Quest 1's crazy short. Final Fantasy 1 is crazy short. I could beat that one in like a single sitting. I've played it enough times. I think the speed run for it's like half an hour, but I spend a lot more than that. I usually take
Final
like
Fantasy 1 is pretty
Okay,
expensive.
oh,
for
What,
its time it
system-
is, but you can beat it in like, depending how fast you go, 4 to 8 hours if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. But it's a lot longer than Dragon Quest 1.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, Final Fantasy, you got to go to the Earth, and then the volcano and the underwater and the sky
Yeah.
area.
And if you event break, you can beat the whole thing in half an hour.
Sure.
Yeah. But if
If
you're
you
doing it
go
the
through
right
everything.
way, yeah.
If you go through everything,
was-
Final Fantasy 1 is pretty long.
I was going to suggest, which system would you suggest for the Final Fantasy series that they're in order?
Ooh, well,
Or
it depends
play
on which version of the game you want to play. For 2, I do not recommend playing the original version of the game whatsoever. Which you can still play. There
What
are
did you-
English patches for it, so you can understand the original version on ROM. I would say either the Final Fantasy Origins for the PlayStation is the best way to play 2, or basically the same game, but the Origins has better sound. Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls for the Game Boy Advance, which has 1 and 2 in it as well. Those are the best way to play 2. They're an okay way to play 1 as well, because despite how short it is, and both of them are about the same length, they just have some bonus bosses in Origins and Dawn of Souls. The original Final Fantasy is hard. Like, it's not forgiving to people, right? And the leveling system is weird. Everything's kind of scaled to 50 instead of the, like, 99, 100, like, scaling that you're used to from other Final Fantasy games. You can still get pretty high, but that's, like, the chaos is scaled for level 45 out of 50.
So if I get Final Fantasy Origins for the PlayStation, number
It has
1
1
or
and 2 in there
2?
both. You can play both of them that way. That's a fine way to play it. Even if you play original difficulty, because there is a setting for normal or original difficulty in Origins, it's still better to play that original difficulty than it is to play the original game, because the luck stat works in that version. In the original Final Fantasy, there is a luck stat, which was supposed to... the 6 stats are supposed to go 1-to-1, almost with the 6 stats in D&D, because the original Final Fantasy is almost a D&D game. It's kind of based off of it. And instead of having charisma, it was replaced with luck. There's some value problem. I don't know if, like, internally the luck was set to 0 or whatever, but luck does not affect anything in the game. It doesn't even affect whether you crit or not. It's a broken stat.
Lovely.
Yeah. Because I think agility, or whatever it is, your speed stat is what actually ends up affecting crit in that game.
I actually have a pretty good PlayStation emulator.
What do you have, PSX?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Cool.
Do you happen to have not the emulator, but the Origins for that?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can actually send you. I can zip it. I have a whole file, which is where I got the emulator. I torrented it all together at one point, so I didn't have to worry about bins. But my emulator came from a torrent that had like every PlayStation Final Fantasy game in the zip file. Because that's the reason why I got the emulator in the first place, was to play all the Final Fantasy games.
So what version of Final Fantasy 3 would you recommend?
There's only one version to play, and that is probably the Steam version, which you can still pirate that one if you need to. But I would say it's the DS version. But unless you're playing it on a Mac, the best DS emulator, which is a Desume, doesn't run very well on Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it runs okay, but it's not
Is
great.
Is that the one they converted to like 3D?
Yeah, it's the 3D models. It's the first one that uses what is now the Bravely default models.
Right.
Yeah. That is one I would recommend. It's the highest functioning version of the game. It has this cool little cinematic opening too, and all that stuff. Remember, I showed you that picture of that realistic chocobo, Rick, with the girl next to it and everything, or the one with the 4 people riding the chocobos. That was from that cinematic opening. That's for 3.
Oh.
That's the version I would recommend to people. The original plays fine, but you have to get an English patch.
I take it that's not in that file that you were just talking about for PlayStation? Or
No. This one, because it wasn't until the DS, which they had originally made it for that system, and then they ported it to mobile and PC afterwards. It wasn't until the DS remake that there was even an English version of that game.
Okay.
So it took years for that. 5, I recommend playing the PlayStation version as well.
What about 4?
Yeah, for all of them, because 4 had a remake. It's got an after dungeon on the moon that you can do, which is same with the advanced version.
So
the Game Boy Advance versions are just the PlayStation versions of 4, 5, and 6. Just with compressed sound. That's the only real difference. So you'd rather play the PlayStation because the sound's uncompressed.
Of course, 4 you can get as Final Fantasy 2 for the SNES.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but they probably upgraded. They probably upgraded the graphics a little bit on the PS1 for it. So.
Well, the graphics for the sprites are pretty well from the Game Boy one and the PlayStation are the same. I think they didn't touch it for 4, 5, and 6, though. I think they left it pretty much the same graphically. The only difference is the PlayStation versions have this really nice opening cinematic. Even Origins have this nice, fully CG opening cinematic that obviously the original ones don't have.
Bullet says non-working luck stat is commentary on luck being alive.
Yeah.
He goes like Bullet says his favorite stream ever. He's glad to see 3 Canadians together on one stream. Now he plays.
I'm not. I should probably take offense to that.
And bar soup. I think I should take offense to it too, although I'm Canadian.
Yeah. You should take offense to the fact that he's trying to use us as a representation of Canada.
Yeah, exactly. What I'm
Look at
thinking.
my money. Does this look Canadian
like-
to you?
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's sort of like when the Americans go on vacation and wear those Canadian patches.
Yeah.
I know you're American by the way you act.
I think the delay is getting longer and longer as we go.
Probably. Like it reset at one point and then it's just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what other ways.
9 minutes ago, came out with a video that's about the Switch Pro rumors.
Mm-hmm.
Funny, we were just talking about that. So now, should I buy a Switch or should I wait?
I don't know, man. How bad do you want to switch?
I'll have to watch Arlo and see what he says about it.
Now for 5, the PlayStation is the only way to play it. That's the only way I can recommend you playing it is the PlayStation version. Because, especially 6, you play the PlayStation version of 6 too, because I liked the advanced versions, but the PlayStation is just a better version of that. Don't play the Steam / iOS version of 6. It looks awful. I would not even be able to watch your video of you playing it because of how much I hate the way it looks. The portraits look fine. The character portraits, it looks all watercolory. But they took the sprites out. And they replaced them with like these they almost look like flash images of the sprites. Like somebody redrew the sprite by hand. And not even as good as the way that I've been drawing the chibi characters for our campaign. They look really awful, the way these little hand-drawn sprites do.
For which one?
For Final Fantasy VI for the iOS.
Oh.
You've seen it, right? Yeah. And the
no, see, again, I would play, personally, for nostalgia purposes, I would play Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES.
Yeah.
That's my favorite version. And it actually comes on the SNES. I keep pointing, it's on the ground over here.
Yeah.
But it comes on the SNES Mini. So that would be the version I would play.
Yeah, well, those are the versions I played originally, was 2 and 3. I loved the original version of Final Fantasy 4. But because I loved it so much, having a Game Boy Advance, I bought the advanced copies of both 4 and 6. I played 5 as well. My brother had bought that one. And it's like, I like them better. But it's also because they have the bonus dungeons at the end.
So, do you have on the file that you're saying, does that for the PlayStation? Does it have that has 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, or
The grouping that I
1 and
have
2?
has the Origins, which is 1 and 2. I don't know if I have 4 on there. I'd have to double check. But it also has Anthology, which was 2 different discs that had 5 and 6 together. I think if 4 was 4 like released separately, like it was just its own disc. It wasn't a double pack. Or no, wasn't 4 released with the Origins in a double pack too? Like there was the Origins and it was 1 disc, and then I think you could buy a double pack that also had 4 in it. I think that's how they sold it. You could either get it single or together. But then I also have Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 in that pack as well, in that zip file.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Because that just means I have to go get Plank 3.
But I remember 5 and
And you
6
say that's on-
were only sold in a package for the PlayStation called Final Fantasy Anthology. And it was like one of those double disc cases. And in the front case was Final Fantasy 5, and in the back case was Final Fantasy 6. That was how they did it for the PlayStation.
Ego says 3 minutes delay. Yeah, so that, and you say 3's on the DS, so
Yeah, you could
I should be
emulate it. I would say it'd be better just to pirate the Steam version. I own the Steam version, so I don't have to pirate it. I could play it. I also have the Steam version of
I have
4.
them all.
Yeah.
here,
I have them all on my iPad.
Yeah.
I can show you. And I have most of the Dragon Quest games. Actually, yeah. You could just get them all on iPad. I don't know if you can see that.
Not really. I'm just opening up my Steam to see how much it is.
So yeah, I have Final. I guess it's kind of hard to see, but I have Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Final Fantasy 4: The After Years. All on my iPad, and I've got Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, cool.
Eagle has a question for you. That really doesn't matter because you're not the game master and you're not the one who makes these decisions. But he wants to know, Marsupial, should I be able to kill Rick's chocobo?
He says, I feel like I should be able to kill it. Sure.
I don't
In
think
a
he should because that's not how
philosophy.
death works. Like, if it worked into the narrative and it came up in the plot, yes, things can die that way. But that's not how death works in this game.
Figure out where my camera is.
You don't just get to kill player characters or their familiars.
This is Final Fantasy.
Yeah, well, the only thing is, if he's gonna kill it, he's gonna kill it on the first turn, because then
Moving it wrong.
he's gonna have to face me and.
Well, why is
Yeah,
he afraid
beautiful.
of you? You can't kill anyone. Yeah, dude, I love that cinematic.
Yeah! Can't kill anyone!
That made me so hyped for that game when I first saw it. Like, I had already purchased it, but when I loaded it up into my DS and I saw that for the first time, like, oh.
That's amazing. Look at that airship.
Yep. I wish
Pretty cool.
we could get a Final Fantasy game that actually looks like that while you play. And I know, like, 15 kind of came close to it. The graphics look great. But then instead of it having, like, this steampunkish medieval world that the old Final Fantasy games had, it was all modern with cars and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the new one coming out looks pretty good graphically. It looks like it's in the right world, but it doesn't look like it plays like a Final Fantasy game. And like, why can I get like 1 or 2 of these 3 things, but I can't get all 3 of them in the same package? I want a game that looks that good, is in a world that's reminiscent of the old Final Fantasy games, and plays like a Final Fantasy game. It's just 3 ticks. How hard is it to ask for this in the modern day? This should be very easy to fill.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad of a price. It's only $18 Canadian.
How long is this cinematic?
It's pretty long. All of them are about that long too. 4 had a good intro. The only one that's pretty short is the intro to 1 for Dawn of Souls, and I think it's because of the memory it took up. You know, these were on the place. Well, that one obviously didn't have the memory problem, but the PlayStation ones, they were trying to like kind of emulate the way those openings were. They had memory problems because you already had to fit the game on the disc. You didn't want this cinematic opening to take up the rest of the room on the disc. So the 1 and 2 openings were both really short and basically half the length of the opening to 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still going.
Yep. I believe what it plays a kind of like a symphonic version of the Overworld theme too, right? The da 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 da. I'm pretty sure that's like the song that's playing during that opening.
Yeah. Finally got to it. Is Eagle going to be playing with us?
No, because he hasn't gotten with me. He can, but I told him that before we play a session, he has to tell me a time. He doesn't have to be on voice, because I know he has mic issues, but we have to get into a voice chat, even if it's just private in Discord, so I can see him typing while I'm talking to him, and I can be working up his character sheet at the same time. Because he has not set up a time, he will not be in a session until he does. And he has even more time now. He has a whole nother week to set that up.
Yeah, you have a week. See, it's my philosophy of RPGs is you can do whatever you want. So if I were running it, I would say, yes, you could kill Rick's Chocobo, but I am not the DM.
Yeah.
It's Metal's decision. So,
I have a very
you.
mixed feeling on the player can do whatever they want. I want to give players freedom, but then there are certain things that, like...
See, that's probably why I would probably not be a good DM.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of limitations I should put on people.
Yeah, well, because I used to be that way. I used to not put any limitations whatsoever, but I've also ran like 20 campaigns. Like long, well, not all of them are long. Maybe 15 of the campaigns were long. Some of them were short. I've run somewhere between 20 to 25. I can't remember exactly. But of the long-term ones, I've ran 15 of them. And there have just been messes throughout it because I let people do whatever the heck they wanted to do. Yeah. And it's like, you want to give freedom, but you also want to force people to stick to whatever character they made as well. And that means within the frame of the story, too. Because as the DM, or GM, as you use for anything but Dungeons & Dragons, you are basically a storyteller. You're the one weaving a narrative. These are actors in your play that you're giving, letting improvise. And you need to make sure that the story flows.
Yeah, you gotta be glad that he's making people stick to their characters and that. Because look at me. I've chosen, that I can't kill and I can't attack things unaware. And right now, I'm feeling like that was a very bad choice.
Yeah.
Because anybody wants to attack me, my character's probably jumping.
But it works, right? So I hate min-maxers in RPGs because people who min-max, which is basically just trying to make the most efficient character you can make, it kind of suck the fun out because you're not role-playing a character, right? This is why I usually hate skills and advantages and disadvantages, because people tend to min-max with them. But Rick, even taking a bunch of advantages and disadvantages, for the most part you picked ones that work with the character that you're making, because you're kind of making a character who has a higher calling. You even took the higher calling trait. So the disadvantages that you have, the Code of Honor and Code of Mercy, fit the higher calling character. And the same with Marsupial. He's kind of like this forgettable guy, right, as a Moogle. His character is not really rememberable at all. He's like a face in the crowd, androgynous, because a lot of Mughals tend to look very similarly. You can't even tell if his character is a guy or a girl. He's probably the character that's looking for himself, but there's like a theme here, like everything matches. And I like characters like that, and I like people who, I force them to stick to those characters too, because those are characters you can tell an interesting story around. You can't really tell a story around a character. It's like, well, I want 1 level in Barbarian so I can rage, and then I'm going to take like 6 levels in Rogue after that, as I level up, so I can get my stealth attack and one-shot kill someone while raging. It's like, that's not fun. If you want to, like, I'm even fine with multi-classing. I've even kind of already thought of a way it could work in this game. If thematically, story-wise, it works for your character. Like, say you were a paladin, and you had a crisis of faith, and now you're a Dark Knight. Kind of like the opposite of Cecil's story from Final Fantasy IV, where he had a road to redemption. If you had, like, a thematic reason for multi-classing, I'd be fine with that. But people who just want to min-max, they just suck the fun out of the game for the other players, like, or even for the game master. Because you're going in, you're trying to have fun with the players too, right? I'm not actually trying to, like, ruin your guys' days. Sometimes I'm going to have some trolly things, but I'm only going to do it if I think it's something that could be fun for the players. Like, it's an interesting challenge or puzzle that subverted your expectations. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Let's have fun with this. A playful trolling. I want to have fun with you guys as much as you guys want to have fun playing the game. We're not competing against each other.
Down for the end.
Yeah. We're not trying to compete with each other. We're trying to cooperate in different ways.
Yeah.
And although I'm complaining about it a little bit or whatever, I'm actually not complaining.
Yeah.
Maybe regretting it just a tiny bit. I'm still going to have fun with it, and, it just means I got to try and, get people to help out, if I want to go grinding or whatever. You're
going to regret calling him Leighton Gay being the person why we even had to cancel the session today in the first place.
I wasn't late. I was completely absent.
Yeah. Does that make you double gay?
That's right.
Does that cancel out? I don't know how this works in the modern world.
I was absent and super gay. Absent and flamboyant.
But yeah, and that's the thing
it is
too.
9 o'clock.
Yeah. I'll wrap it up in a second. I just want to say one last thing. If you do let people get away with stuff that they shouldn't, as in, like, you let somebody do something out of character, you need to punish them by making that part of their character now and making the world react to them appropriately. Kind of like A Link to the Past is a perfect example of a game that does this. Because Link is not a thief. As a character, Link would not actually steal from someone. People make a joke, they'll break your pots and steal your rupees or whatever, but he wouldn't go into a store and steal somebody's stuff. He'd pay for it. So, when you do go and steal from the shop, you're branded a thief for the rest of the game. They don't even call you the name you typed in anymore. People just refer to you as thief. So the game punishes you for that. I think a good game master should do that to the players, where the world reacts to them doing things that are kind of out of character, and it now brands that as being part of their character. That's all I think on the matter. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, as you said.
You'd have your name on the wall. It says, "This is a thief,"
Oh, yeah.
Don't take any checks from the guy.
So, yeah.
John's making fun of my shirt. My Brooks Brothers shirt.
Anyway, thanks for everybody for coming. Thank Rix for joining us. As always, thanking a marsupial, but you're my co-host at this point, so it's kind of weird to...
Give me a high five.
High five. Here, no, you go down, I'll go up this way. Here we go. Yeah, there. And we'll see all of you guys next time on the Vomitorium. Have a good one.
Hi.
Yeah, that was rude, Rick. Why would you even... do that?
Christmas, you filthy animals, and a Happy New Year.